Okay. And we're live. Fantastic. Hello and good evening, everyone, to this Friday. We're looking at part 2 of Patricia Taxxon's A Closer Look at Objective Art Criticism, which is always a delight to have conversations with people about, well, objective critique. This is what we do. And with me, of course, are the Smudcast crew. We have LIteratureDevil. We have This is the Man in biohazard suit. I don't know if that's a thing he's wearing actually in real life. I wouldn't be surprised because I've seen some pretty funny things downtown. But yeah, this is Southpaw, and
Hello.
here's Evan, and we're waiting on Mr. Shiny, but who knows where he is? But that's okay. It's cool that he was with us before with Shadiversity. We had a great stream before. That was fun.
It was fun.
Oh yeah.
A little disappointing because we didn't get any information about why the TLJ throne womb scene was exciting or good or bad or sexy or whatever. It was just kind of there, and he loved it, and that was about all we got, aside from two things which were
what
negative.
we took from it was that it was brilliant and genius because everyone who showed up, who was supposed to show up, did, and that was basically it was normal and was fine. Apparently, that's why it was genius.
And there were a lot of medium close-ups and a lot of editing.
A lot of medium close-ups.
Yeah, a bit sad there. I really wanted to have some good observations. He counted all the cuts. I was like, okay, this is going somewhere. We're gonna figure out what all these cuts mean. And he was like, no, he just counted them. So anyway, in this video, or our previous video rather, we looked at the first half of Patricia Taxxon's stuff. We got some feedback, and I love it when we get feedback, like actual people listening to the chat. And I'm going to go over some, and I want us to answer some of these questions. They're not hard, but these are official responses. So I want to treat this with respect, as odd as it sounds to us, because we know what we said. We know how we understand objective criticism. So I'm going to read them out to you. I don't know if you guys can see the screen, but here is a chat from, or rather a comment from Lewis Perry. And he's also in isolation, has some spare time, so great. And sorry if my initial comment was a bit aggressive. I was frustrated at how you were approaching what I think is good video critique on objectivity in films. Okay, so here's the first one. At 9 minutes and 10 seconds, you start talking about basketballs. You're claiming Patty is saying there's no way to objectively categorize two basketballs as similar. And that was not, I believe, my comment. I think that was what Patricia said. She could not do it. She could not compare two basketballs, while I said, yeah, you could. You could take apples and apples and look at them and objectively say which is the better basketball. You could totally do that.
Oh yeah, you could. Which one bounces better? Which one has better handling? Is better weight? And I don't know the specifics of basketball and what people are looking for, but yeah, you could. Different brands might make basketballs differently.
And
You would want the basketball to be like properly inflated. You don't want a half-inflated basketball.
yeah, so you could look at the flaws of a basketball and say, well, this one's obviously better because it has a hole, it's deflated, et cetera, et cetera. So
From what I understand, wasn't it if a flat basketball is not inferior, it's just different. It's like if you have an inferior microphone because your good microphone isn't working, it's not inferior, it's just different. So it would the same be applying to basketballs?
well, at the time, if you go like to like in that point in time, then it would be inferior. Anyway, this person believes this is a massive straw man, and I don't know why. If two basketballs have the same qualities, then it's absolutely fine to group or categorize them as objectively, or together objectively, which is like, yes, that's true. As two things of a particular type, assuming perception is objective, yes. But like Patty said, there's no reason to get into that, right? What you can't then do is tell me whether basketballs are good or bad. And this, yes, we said we could list all the things. Is it deflated? Does it have holes in it? Is all the grip worn off? Does it bounce? Is it still spherical? You can totally do that and determine things. So I don't know why not. And it seems pretty obvious to me with a sphere that bounces up and down, and why you can. I've played with basketballs, I've played with volleyballs. You can totally tell which ball is better. Why do you think we have all these people with tennis being thrown? They have a ball boys throw tennis balls to tennis players and go, no, I don't want all these balls. I just want this one ball in my pocket, and the other one's going to serve. Very specific, very particular on what balls they get to serve with. So,
Well, like, what is the function of a basketball supposed to be?
Yeah, exactly.
To ask yourself that. There's a reason why we put basketballs in the basketball hoops instead of baseballs, tennis balls, golf balls, or footballs, or soccer balls, or volleyballs, or anything, any other kind of ball. There's a reason why we use a basketball as opposed to any of those other types of balls. There is a particular function that basketballs have that those other balls do not have, that like both refers to, density, size, shape, weight, bounciness, the grip. Yeah, there's a number of qualities that a basketball has that other types of balls do not have, that are required of a basketball in order for the game of basketball to be played.
Yeah, this is kind of the explanation that I hear a lot of people say. Like, I think I mentioned this last time, the idea that you can make objective observations about a piece of art or anything else, but your conclusions aren't going to be it. So the second you say this is bad because X, then instantly everything you said is subjective. Like, I disagree with that, and that's why I think that function is important, or coming up with some sort of a standard so that you can fulfill that. Like, you need to come up with something which with your objective observations can like be used. That's what I think. It's not. I've never understood why there's this leap that instantly turns everything you say subjective. I don't like.
Yeah.
I've never seen what that is.
It's pretty straightforward to us, but we can only explain itself so many times to go over these observations. But let's keep going. So at 15 minutes, you start chatting shit about how terrible it is to argue we might all be in the Matrix, or in a Matrix. Okay. When trying to dispute a film, saying it's obfuscation to attack perception philosophically in art analysis. You're saying this just before you hit play, and Patty goes on to say that she won't question perception philosophically. You then say you're glad she agrees with you on that. Yeah, because that would be a big other argument. You end up deriding her for an argument she is specifically not making, and then claiming she agrees with you when she says, I don't need to do this to dismiss your argument. Not a fallacy of argument, really. I just included it here as an illustration of how lowbrow your critique can be of a video when done in this way. Okay, so this person does not like the fact that we're pausing every minute, critiquing, and then next sentence we say something else. But we take what we get, and then if there's more context, we then correct ourselves, or we address the argument then. That's the nature of the game, guys. That's not a big deal. I'm going to keep going because that's not really worth talking about. At 15:31, you really fail to understand that she's making a joke about the fundamentalist Maulerism, which is...
I didn't. I knew that was a joke. It was funny.
I was gonna say, we were laughing at that, like unironically. That was hilarious. Like fundamentalist Maulerism.
How far they go? The fundamentalist Maulerism. I love it.
Yeah, so we get that she wasn't being well. How do you categorize Maulerisms? That's ridiculous. So
that was just the title of the section, and it was funny.
I think we ran with it too. We made a couple more jokes off of that.
Yeah,
fundamentalist Maulerism is fantastic. Yeah. No, we knew you knew Patty Chan was joking. It was funny.
Right. Okay, let's just keep going because that's kind of a silly thing not to critique. At 20:05, you talk about how objectivity is giving information, and then explaining why that is bad. What makes something objectively bad as opposed to subjectively bad with respect to you? If something is inconsistent, for example, a knife disappears and the story progression is harmed, even if something happens which isn't to the director's intent, and you don't like any of that, then how can you claim that everyone doesn't like that?
Can we pause right here? So when something happens that's not due to the director's intent, let's say you're making a sequel and maybe a vital cast member of yours passed away in between films. So you have to figure out a way to write out the character, or maybe, like, for instance, the whole thing with CGI Leia in The Rise of Skywalker, it's weird, it's awkward, and hi Shiny, that was a great time to come in. Yep. It's a very so Shiny, what I'm referring to here is CGI Leia. This comment that we're reading out mentions if something is inconsistent, for example, a knife disappears and the story progression is harmed, even if something happens which isn't to the director's intent and you don't like any of that, then how can you claim that everyone doesn't like that? So first, I don't think that we're claiming that everyone doesn't like that. That's not what we're referring to when we say objectively, it's like
That's-
we're trying to.
That's what a lot of people seem to think, that like if for something to be objectively bad, it means that everyone must respond to it in the same way. That's never been what this is about.
Yeah. I can't believe that I have to repeat myself over and over on this. And Smudboy, Literature Devil, Evans, Shiny, you can counter me if what I'm saying here doesn't represent you guys, but we're not using objectively as a synonym for universally. We're trying to put our feelings aside about something in order to just break down the mechanics and like what the craftsmanship of a work of art is like. Okay. Does that sum it up properly, or am I missing anything?
That
Sums it up for me. That's
I think
yeah.
you got it.
That's what I've said. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's like I'm not
Yeah,
necessarily.
It's more just about, we're not saying facts. It's basically trying to get to the closest we can to some kind of just like. I suppose we can never create like a proper factual basis of this is good and this is bad. We can only, the closest thing we can get to it is just have a discussion about what makes it good and explain why it is good or why it is bad. And you can usually use things that we can reference in a film and that we can generally agree upon that makes it good or bad to come to the conclusion.
Right. Like
And
the
again-
example of the basketballs, if we know there's a hole in a ball and it doesn't do the function of a ball, it's a bad basketball. That's pretty obvious. With art appreciation, it's a bit more difficult because you have seen probably hundreds of movies and you see a shot a certain way, you see lighting a certain way, you see close-ups a certain way, and then you come to The Last Jedi and you see all this stuff happening all at once on screen, like the fight choreography, and you're like, oh, this is not a good fight scene because I know how fights should look. I've seen fights before in this actual series. This is not a good fight scene because of X, Y, Z. So,
And as someone that's like crafting a story of my own, a mystery story, if Smudboy, once I'm finished with it, I'm going to submit it to you for review, and you come to me and you say that like this, the reveal for this mystery doesn't make any sense because you're saying that the murderer was this person and he had to have been in X location, but at the time he was actually at Y location, which is a plot hole. Then I have to say, okay, then the solution that I have to the mystery is objectively bad or objectively flawed for that reason, you know. So then I'd have to go and fix that. If I have a fight scene, if I'm making a movie with a fight scene, it's in the dark, and I have no proper lighting, and I'm doing tons of close-up jump cuts and shaky cam, and you cannot see what's going on. And like I want to make it clear, if I have a fight scene, unless I'm stating otherwise, I want people to see what's going on in the fight. So if I'm constructing a fight scene in a way that is difficult to make out what's going on, even if you're paying very close attention and like even playing it in slow motion and everything, then yes, that's an objectively bad fight scene.
okay, let's keep
Because
going
it's-
here. Let's keep going because we have a few
I just want
left.
to add in that
I'm
one
stuck
thing
at
about-
0-0.
Oh yeah, we're not actually watching the video just yet. Just yet. We're going over a response. But I wanted to add in, because if you have that mystery, and maybe your serial killer is
Oh,
like
wait,
a-
are we going over the big comment you've posted in
Yes,
the
yes,
Smudcast?
Mhm.
Okay.
correct. Like if you had your mystery and your serial killer is like the killings involved, the removal organs, like a Hannibal Lecter-esque where he makes food out of them or whatever,
Yeah.
and your serial killer turns out to be a surgeon or a doctor, which is logical for so you can know that knowledge.
Mhm.
And I came back to you and you gave it to me, and I came back to you and said, I know it makes sense that he's a surgeon, but wouldn't it be really cool if he were a ninja instead? That would be subjective because there's nothing wrong with it being a surgeon. It makes sense, and it makes sense to me. It would be cool for me if he were a ninja. That'd be more subjective. Now, if you were same scenario, the organs being taken out, but your serial killer was, I don't know, maybe a butcher of animals or something like that, who doesn't really know the human body, then I could suggest to you that it would be maybe objectively better if he had some like a surgeon background, or was a surgeon, or had more familiarity with the human body, so he can actually get away with these murders and take out the organs and do whatever he needs with them more in the sense of getting away with it and being able to cover his tracks and all that stuff. So there's a little bit of difference there. What makes more sense, which fits with the story structure better, the narrative better, and as opposed to what I personally would think would be cooler or something.
Right.
Yeah, no, just
Oh,
right
just
before we
asking,
move on from
whereabouts
that,
are we on the comment, the big long comment?
The 2005 comment.
yeah, there was a point when I was like first trying to construct the story that I'm writing, and I was thinking, so maybe I'll have my killer actually remove organs or anything. He should have like he'll surgically remove them. But I'm thinking, well, what's his occupation actually going to be? And I'm not going to give that part away. But it doesn't have anything to do with like the medical field. So I was like, you know what? I can't really have that then if he's not going to have a natural knowledge of the human body or an educated knowledge of the human body. So yeah.
I'm going to read the last comment of the paragraph just to summarize what this person's saying. Think of The Room, for example. It may not do what the director wanted it to do, but it still is loved by many for how absurd and hilarious it is. I agree. Would you say that The Room then is objectively bad despite the typical audience loving it? Yes, I would. That seems pretty absurd. Why? Why does it seem absurd? That's exactly what The Room is. It's so bad, it's good.
Yeah, that's why everyone loves it. It's awful. It doesn't matter what Tony Wiseau says. It's a terribly made movie, but it's so terribly made. It ended up being genius.
This is the thing that we keep on seeing with these subjectivists here. They keep on conflating what they love with what is good.
Or the success of the story, like how many people like it, like versus that. They're like, The Room, a lot of people really like that movie. Surely that means it succeeded in some way. Like it succeeded for subjective reasons. Yeah, exactly. You're like, it succeeded for subjective reasons. Like people enjoy watching that movie. They enjoy making fun of it because of what it is. And it's like, it's not well made. And it wasn't the director's intent to do that. He wanted to make a great film, but what happened, and it's fun. It's fun to watch The Room.
Well, Evan, that's just your opinion that it is not as well made of a movie as The Godfather.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
Wow.
you haven't told us why
Just
The
an
Room is
opinion.
bad.
Like
Why would those horrible acting make it horrible?
Okay, let's keep going, guys. Let's keep going. We get it.
Yeah.
At 42, you say, do we need to explain why the knife disappearing makes the movie worse? And you all laugh at the idea that this needs to be explained. Do you need to explain it at all? Yeah, you do. This is what the entire debate is about. Okay. Dismissing the central facet.
Well, okay. The fact that the knife disappears, I understand that might not come across to some people, but it should be very obvious why a disappearing weapon it creates flaws. And I think we've just said this time and time again, is that weapon could have killed Ray. In fact, he should have still been able to kill Ray because of the way the knife's going against her throat and the way she just lets go. And the fact he has another free hand that he just leaves by his side instead of, grabbing her or doing anything to her.
We laughed because it was so obvious that as you said, if the knife hadn't disappeared, she'd be dead or severely wounded.
Let me ask you guys a question. What is the purpose of a fight scene that's, having our characters fighting to the death? What are we supposed to feel there? Are we supposed to feel that
tension?
Characters
are high tension.
Stakes being maintained
because they should be killable, right? Because they're fighting for their lives here, right? So
I understand
if they're fighting against people who don't continue pushing their weapons forward when their weapons are let go, so that they can let the heroes kill them, are they really in danger?
It's like, if some random guy throws his weapon out of this the shot so we can run in and get stabbed, does that ruin the tension? I think it.
Yeah.
If absolutely anything can happen, like Ray kicking one guy and three guys get kicked, it just removes any kind of tension to the fight. If it's all just a big dance and it doesn't feel real, you're not selling it as real. You need to sell it as real.
If you notice that the knife goes away, then it tells the audience that these main characters are unkillable. They're not going to die. The world and logic is going to bend around them so they survive this fight.
Well, then people will say most people don't notice that. They're like, I didn't notice the knife disappearing, and it's just like,
but it also shows the lack of effort on everyone's side. Just because they couldn't be bothered to make a proper fight scene.
Yeah, anything you do in post, which is an error you have to fix in post, is an obvious error. We shouldn't have to explain that, the nature of the error, whether it's big or small. This is why we laugh. It's like this was clearly a problem with the production, with the choreography, with everything, and they had to catch it in post because no one bothered to think about it. Like everyone didn't say anything, whether they were getting paid. And this went on for 6 months.
I ranted about this on the last video, but
Yes.
how do you not notice this? How did the guy in the fucking suit not just go up to like Ryan Johnson and said, "Hey, look, Ryan, I don't know why I just don't use this other knife in my hand. Maybe I should be doing something." Unless Ryan just said, "No,
Right.
no, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Don't say anything, otherwise I'm gonna fucking fire you."
So
Well, seriously, the only thing that I can come up with is that in post, the CGI artists were tasked with removing it because they realized the choreography error.
It wouldn't
and they
be
gave it to-
CGI. It would be airbrushing.
Yeah, exactly. To airbrush it out, and they gave it to someone who just like did half of it and they didn't understand what they were doing, and then they didn't realize that until the film came out. They're like, "You only did half. You were supposed to do the entire thing." It's
When
just
it comes to the artists themselves, they don't get context on what's happening. You'd get context for people who are actually in the scene, but the visual effects artist would be told, "Okay, I need this in here, I need this in here, I need you to remove this, I need you to do that, I need to put space there," and that's all they'll be given. They won't be told like, "Oh, look, there's other parts of the story where maybe the knife should be removed still." They'll have someone else do those scenes. Unless they've been told to do it, they won't do it.
Okay, let's just go on with this person's argument because this is where he sort of loses his understanding. Dismissing the central facet of an argument by laughing at it, what an illogical way to refute something. Well, no.
We're not laughing at the argument. We're laughing at the fact that we need to explain
Yeah.
why a disappearing knife is a bad thing.
So here we have an overexertion of intelligence when I see this sort of stuff.
Also, it became a joke. The reason why we laughed is because it's a joke at this point. We've had to explain it so many times, and it is very obvious.
It's like having to explain why the scene in like when Leia flies in space is ridiculous. It's like, really? I actually have to break down why this obviously absurd scene is stupid?
Yeah, it's not worth talking about any further. I just want to address this person's comment because he was so we're happy.
He spent a lot of time on
exactly.
this.
Right.
You know, paying respect to the guy, he spent a lot of time on this comment.
So let's just keep going. What Patty is really trying to entail is the philosophical notion of the is-ought problem. Now, I don't know if people knows what the is-ought problem is. That's a Humean thing, where Hume believes that you can only have knowledge through the experiences, through the senses, and everything that's rational you derive from the mind is not actual knowledge. It's just rationalization. So the is-ought problem is like, well, this is a knife. You ought to not kill someone because that would be ethically wrong. And Hume says, well, who cares if it's ethically wrong? There's no rule in nature says you can't. So applying that to aesthetics, it's the same argument really. So we say, okay, well, I'm not going to kill someone because I ought not to. But he's blowing this way out of proportion because we are dismissing the entire element because it's clearly an error in production. It's not something we have to use some philosophical tool to look at. So here he says, which is the inescapable issue everyone's into when trying to objectively evaluate art, that one cannot turn a descriptive sentence, "the knife went missing," into a prescriptive sentence, "it is bad that the knife went missing." You can explain how any film is hot garbage easily.
Okay, well, so in the real
I'll just
world,
maybe give a reason why the reason why we have to explain this knife thing is because the people who love this film will give it such a wide the bias is very clear. They'll forgive this film for a lot of what it does, and some people this is very. It shows a lot with critics. Critics who have said the exact same shit about other films will then give this film a pass for a certain thing that it's done. I can't think of any critic in particular, but it has. I think the critics have been caught doing this. I think Patrick Williams might have before.
Yeah, like the shut up about plot holes thing. Like tons of people do this. They'll dismiss certain things in movies that doesn't bother them. And it's like inside of this case, a lot of them will just say this is a nitpick. You're nitpicking the movie. It's like things which save characters' lives or are like foundational to the plot functioning are not nitpicks.
It really doesn't matter if it bothers them. It matters if it's a problem in the film itself. They're two completely separate things.
There's a scene in The Dark Knight Rises where Batman's fighting a bunch of goons. It's a wide shot, and there's one guy who has a clear shot at him with his gun, and then he just like slips on nothing. It's almost like as if he got hit by a gunshot that wasn't like edited in. And so what we then end up with is a scene where a person could kill the hero, but he decides to just slip on an off-screen banana peel. Now, why this is bad is because in the real world, that doesn't happen.
It would
Invisible
depend on
banana
how
peels
much the
do
camera
not.
is focused on it. If it's such a very small detail in this long shot that it's very difficult to see, then it's more passable than a knife. That's because obviously this fight is in the focus we're talking about in The Last Jedi. There's only two people fighting in the shot. There's Rey and this other guy, and all the shot is focusing on this, and that's where the problem becomes huge. But in a long shot where it's only a small detail, it's not as big as a problem.
Well, Shiny, there you also have the wide shot inside of the throne room with like everyone fighting, and it's just all the details stack up. It's kind of similar in the fight with the fight choreography in The Dark Knight Rises. You have like these small details, but there's
specific scene in The Dark Knight Rises which you're on about, but the way I would think the scene would be that you're talking about would probably be a lot less focus on the goons themselves and more on who's Batman fighting.
No, you're wrong. Here's the gift I'm talking about specifically here. It can. Oh wait, is that not? Hang on.
It's just an image.
It's just an image. Okay, give me one sec. Maybe copy link address. If you open that up, this is zoomed in on the shot, of course, but it's pretty close to the camera. He is very clearly not slipping on anything.
Yeah, okay.
He just this is the thing.
I'll
even
give you
closer it's even closer to the camera than the disappearing knife, which I didn't even know about when I saw in the theater. I saw this in the theater though. So the point is, Batman should have died right here, and he doesn't. The same way that Rey should have died in The Last Jedi with the disappearing knife, and she didn't because the knife disappears. Now, the idea of the mechanics of a disappearing weapon, if there was an in-universe thing, if you have a superhero story where the superhero has an ability, they have like some invisible force barrier over their body that any weapon collides into, and it like turns into ash or something, you know? That's one thing. If that's their ability, they can actually make weapons disappear, and that's like sort of acknowledged in universe. You can work with that. The problem is that's not set up or established in The Last Jedi. So the reason why these things are bad is because if the point is to be immersed in a fight scene, right? And you notice this detail is there, and then you notice it, where a guy with a gun doesn't shoot because he slips on nothing, or a guy's weapon disappears. Newsflash, weapons don't disappear into thin air in your hand in the middle of a fight.
Yeah, I think he clearly was when he gets kicked. That guy gets kicked in the hand with his pistol. I think the idea was that Batman kicks him in the hand and he fires his pistol and actually shoots that other guard. But they didn't put that in.
Actually, I could kind of see that.
The gunshot sound
is
is not in the film itself either.
But that'll be more of a mistake in the post process.
Mistake too. But I mean, you could say he's a really incompetent guard and he slips on the snow.
Yeah, but it's still like,
I don't know how the full shot is, because this is quite a small square shot.
It's very
but maybe in the full shot, that's like kind of more side of the camera. We can't.
Either it's a terrible mistake, editing mistake, or it's like Looney Tunes logic here. He just slips on the snow at the right moment.
But are you looking for Looney Tunes logic in a Nolan Batman film, though? I don't think so. It's like,
no, you look for it in Star Wars Resistance, where people cartoonishly move around to try and avoid laser bolts.
Oh, and by the way, when it comes to like Toon Force, like Elmer Fudd shoots Daffy Duck in the face and his bill like just simply moves to the top of his head. Like, I understand that's the purpose of a cartoon. Like, Toon Force applies completely differently to the physics of like fight choreography and martial arts in Batman and Star Wars. So they're not the same things. Again, context is like the mortal enemy of these subjectivists here.
Okay, I think we've exhausted our half hour on that. That's great, guys. I'm going to read some super chats, and we'll get on with the video. How's that? Okay.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
So let's go back to the first one. Lord Captain Commander Dunn of the Queen's Guard. Thank you, sir. Who's seen Last Kingdom? Excellent medieval drama. Oh, that's an old film.
I wanted to start it.
I haven't seen it.
I think I saw it, but I haven't seen it. But I think I had it recommended to me. Sounds interesting.
Okay. Well, I always like the recommendations on the chat, so thanks, guys. Here's a super chat from Mr. Punished Berserker. Should I do my mandatory paperwork or should I watch Smudcast? Decisions. It depends on what mandatory paperwork you're referring to, because in a time of need...
No, just abandon all your work and watch this.
That's a good idea, too. That could work. Okay. Orin Albert Meisel. Did you see AT-AT's tweet 8 hours ago about The Last Jedi? I have not paid any attention to him. Everyone's been telling me in my Discord about stuff. I've been like, just, okay, whatever. That's cool. That's all I know.
I'm just ignoring him now because I think there's nothing we can really do or say that's gonna try and fix. Nothing's gonna fix anything at this point. And
it kind of blew up, unfortunately. I didn't want that to happen.
I have tried to contact him through Discord. I've tried to contact him through Instagram. I've tried to contact him through Twitter. I've tried to contact him through fucking YouTube, and I fucking emailed him, and completely nothing. So
Yeah, I told you.
He doesn't
I told
want.
you he's not the type to want to discuss anything. He's not the reasonable type.
Tried.
Yeah, so this is not something I wanted to happen. I wanted to be nice and civil, but unfortunately...
And he admitted he had AT-AT Chen admitted to false flagging your videos too, the streams. He admitted to that. He flagged them because he was quote unquote annoyed by them.
He called harassment too, since we did it 3 times, which is not true, but sure.
It's not what harassment is. We didn't personally attack him either. We said, in fact, I think it might have been once or twice, we said it's nothing to do with him personally. We're just talking about his arguments in his video.
I also
Even Shad said that in the last video.
I don't recall any moment where you guys were like, "Hey, all our subscribers, go flood this guy's comments and downvote his videos." Either.
No, that's another one everyone loves to do. They sent their subscribers over to harass me and downvote my video, and it's just like, dude, no one does that. Like literally ever. I've never seen that in a stream where they're like, let's all harass this guy and make his video have downvotes. Like, you gotta be kidding me.
If anything, he's probably gotten a few more hits on his video, maybe a few more comments. I would say that's good publicity. Any comment about another YouTuber is good publicity for them. Same with Wit and Folly. A lot of people had a good laugh when we were looking at her stuff, and she got an uptick. And this is all win-win as far as I'm concerned.
Wit and Folly's videos are put together a lot better. It's more artistic. They're actually nice to look at. AT-AT Chan is just he just puts together a few clips from Disney, which the clips of Disney, I'm pretty sure Disney movies he didn't actually request permission from. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, the whole fair use argument? Yeah. Well.
Like, Smud Boy used my videos without permission. Well, then you should just use Force Awakens and Last Jedi without Disney's permission. Where's the letter that Disney gave you explicit permission to use their clips in your video? It's called fair use.
Satan, you don't realize these people, they love The Last Jedi. Consistency does not matter to them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, I know. I've been dealing with people for years, literally years. So I know exactly who he was the moment he started doing all this nonsense. I knew he was not the type to actually have a discussion, not the reasonable type.
All right, let's keep going. Punished Berserker, thank you again, sir. You're covering a Taxxon stand, doing paperwork. Okay, so I guess you're off doing that important paperwork you asked us about before. Good. I
don't think this guy was a Taxxon stand. He's had some critiques of our critique, which is fine.
And they were actually, honestly, it was a pretty fair critique, even if I think that we countered most of the stuff that they said. Hopefully they feel the same way. And I appreciate the amount of time that they took into writing it out in a very civil manner.
At least they're willing to engage in discussion.
Yes.
That's the fun part. That's the fun
Provide
part.
some time.
Like the part which I respect the most is that they didn't try to attack us. They didn't try to discredit us in any means. They just wanted to create their, respond with their own argument, and that's the way we should be doing this. Not sniping each other on fucking Twitter and flagging certain streams. AT-AT chat.
Okay. Let's go to the next one.
Should be doing that, twat.
Punished Berserker. I thought you were doing your paperwork, sir. Okay. Funny how people don't need to bring up caved-in head postmodern philosophy to defend good movies. Well...
Yeah, they don't, do they? not defend them anyway, just to maybe connect them with what kind of philosophy this kind of speaks to. But yeah, I haven't really seen some sort of philosophy brought in to defend a good movie, to defend it.
You might talk
You
about
know, no
symbolism.
one's ever had to defend a good movie with themes either.
Yeah.
My themes.
I definitely
to
didn't
say,
have to do
like,
that with
all-
Mission Impossible.
I'll
I
see
really-
some of that when it comes
I
to
really
like
like them.
interpretations or like analysis of like
yeah.
symbolisms inside of films. Like that's fine and that can be used, but like usually that's not when in place of like an assessment of quality, or you're not using that to try to like dismiss certain flaws inside of the film. You're just using that to elaborate on what you've talked about previously.
Like this movie is not actually terrible like you think it is. It's actually trying to tell you this certain philosophical principle. Yeah, maybe even if that's true, maybe it is, but it did it poorly, so it's still bad.
Okay, that's a good point. So, next one, Alfredo's Bookshelf. Thank you, sir. I could see a guy slipping as believable, at least. Okay, that's regards to the Batman imagery we just saw.
Maybe he did slip on the snow. Who knows?
At least it's a
It's-
possibility he could have slipped on the
It
snow.
certainly
There
obeys the
isn't a
laws of
possibility
physics,
that
but
a
it-
knife can fucking disappear.
It would
But
be
God
absurd.
Damn, it's just so absurd.
It's
It's
like you
absurd.
said,
I was-
it's like an invisible
I would
banana
say
that goes on
the
ground.
Batman-
It's-
I would say the Batman one is still bad, but it's not as bad as the Throne Room.
Oh, I'm totally willing to concede that it's not as bad in that like it's at least within the realm of possibility or plausibility. It's just
yeah.
extremely low.
It's just extremely likely that he just happened to slip on this little bit of ice over here.
And even
When he
if
had
that
the
were the
perfect
case, it would
shot.
be really, really silly. Even if that were
You know
true.
what they could have done is they could have just not given this guy a gun, or maybe just had the gun like on his side or something.
Well, it's not the only problem in that GIF either, because if you notice, there's like 3 different guys that they're holding guns, and instead of trying to shoot Batman, they try to close in the distance and hit Batman with their guns. So, like, that's a whole other problem.
I
But
love how all the guns just disappear in the final battle. They all have guns and they're
yes.
shooting at each other. And then the second that they converge, like everyone's just punching each other, and it looks so
Yeah.
goofy. It's like,
Oh, and
that
I wanted to add on earlier. It's like whenever I'm watching a lightsaber fight and I'm seeing them do these like twirls, and their opponents are just like waiting for the twirls to finish before attacking. It's like if you're actually trying to kill each other, you should be like just extend your lightsaber holding hand for a quick second, and then you just like boop them, and that kills them. Okay, because their back is facing you now. They're totally vulnerable, and they don't do it, and it bugs me in every Star Wars fight that I've seen, and even in like a lot of fan films I thought were really good. There's actually one that I thought we could maybe watch later on called Concrete Hustle.
Why is Punished Berserker claiming he's the official executive producer of the Smudcast, and he
Did
demands
you know that he got Punished Berserker was officially named that? Did you know he demands more
No.
profanity?
Well, like how James Moore is he's the executive producer of EFAT because of how many super chats he sent.
I think that guy follows me on Twitter now. The official producer of EFAT.
Nice.
I love it. Fantastic.
All right, here's the next super chat from WD Frost. Do we have to? This is much better than the video. I think he was referring to the questions we were answering, as opposed to Eric or Patricia Taxxon's video.
Look, just between you and me, anything's better than this.
No. We've had much worse.
There's much better things. Look, I would watch a Wit and Folly video over this.
No, you wouldn't, sir. I know your
would.
exact reaction to Wit and Folly. It was much worse than a Patricia Taxxon video. So don't pull
Look,
that on me.
my skin's gotten thicker.
What if instead of profanity, we start using like Shakespearean insults? Thou art the spur-galled vile worm.
How darest thou
Cat, yeah.
insult my family?
Thou traitorous dog-hearted
just-
flapdragon.
Just put like a lot of British like insults.
That would be great.
Twat,
That's why we
prick,
have you here, Shiny. You
yeah.
can get angry and use all that wonderful slang we don't know.
All right, I'll pull up a big long list of English profanity.
I'm all waiting. Let's do it. All right, guys, we're ready to go. We're at 20 minutes of Patricia Taxxon's video. Let's get going.
Did a whole stream in NASDAQ. That'd be interesting.
Determining this opinion to be closer to any sort of truth. like, watch any of Mahler's critiques if you can stomach it, and listen for all the parts where he actually explains why the thing he's pointing out is an objective ill.
Don't provide your audience with multiple conflicting emotions at the same time. It is distracting.
We've already been over this, but like he was not simply saying in a vacuum, don't make people feel two things at the same time. Like
no. He's specifically saying conflicting emotions.
Exactly. It's all about the tonal clash, like with humor and like drama.
Again, the more specific thing he's talking about with the scenes is the comedy mixed in with the serious stuff.
Evan, wasn't there a movie that came out like a... I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, like, the scenes that are supposed to be very serious, you shouldn't be. So if you're supposed to be scared of a villain, or you're supposed to believe the tension that's in it, it's kind of broken when there's a joke, and one which I suppose
that ruins that scene. It's like it's so out of place. You're like, there's just this haha, he's not wearing a shirt, but at the same time you're supposed to like feel emotionally invested in that scene. It's like what's the purpose of that? Like, why is it there?
Just Star Wars, though. It's also you can apply to Marvel, where in Endgame there's like this really serious moment where they're putting in the stones, and then Thor really wants to go ahead and do it, but then Rocket says, "Oh, something about Cheese Whiz," and
that's War Machine.
That was Rhodey. Yeah, he said Cheese Whiz.
I haven't seen it in ages. But that's an example of a joke which breaks a serious moment that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, it's always a serious moment, and then they insert a joke in the middle of it, like that one part in the Last Jedi, where several parts, but this one in particular I'm talking about is when Rey is just sitting on a rock, and Luke is telling her, like, reach out for the Force, and he just tickles her fingers with some grass or something. That it goes from serious moment to serious potentially philosophical moment, where he's going to explain the Force to her. And we're going to see how the Force has been reinterpreted in this new sequel series. And it just goes down into a joke. And what that does is that it goes from serious moment where we're taking things seriously to a joke. And what that does ultimately is tell the audience kind of subconsciously that if this is not serious, nothing is going to happen. This is a comedy now. We've gone from serious to comedy to comedic. And if the movie is not taking this scene seriously, why should I?
Yeah, I remember in the theater feeling like the movie was just giving me the finger, because like every time, because I thought that that final shot of The Force Awakens was rather impactful, and then Luke throws the lightsaber over his shoulder. I'm like, really? I waited 2 years to see that, and then they just continue doing it. They turned every serious moment that they could into a little joke. And
same here.
I
heard that from actually a lot of people, that they felt like The Last Jedi was just giving the finger, like the people actively hated you,
like the Snoke that when Snoke dies, and the scene after his tongue sticking out is his head's like kind of just on the.
Yeah, The Closer Look made an entire video talking about this, and it's like a lot of people pick up on it. Like it's a big problem.
Hey Evan, wasn't there a movie that came out like a year and a half ago that was trying to be a horror movie, but also inserted like a ton of jokes that were shoehorned in? What was it called again?
Yeah, it's called Halloween 2018.
Oh, yeah, Halloween 2018. How does horror comedy work in that?
Something scary happens, and then haha, funny joke. It's great. It makes for great tension.
You can have.
Just recall the jokes that happen in like Nightmare on Elm Street.
A horror movie. Like, you can have a comedy in a horror movie, and you can have certain moments which are funny in any kind of genre of media, but it shouldn't be in a serious moment which you're supposed to feel tension, or you're supposed to have a separate emotion like fear, like you're supposed to fear this bad guy on the screen, or you're supposed to be scared. And if all of a sudden there's a joke being made while there's this big reveal of a horrific alien beast.
Yeah, we're following the final girl down the hallway, and she gets trapped somewhere, and we see the serial killer. I mean, it's not really. It's time for a joke.
Imagine if the xenomorph was revealed, and then the guy just got it looks like a dick, and then that wouldn't affect whatsoever.
Oh, look, the serial killer slipped on a banana peel. Isn't that funny? Right before he was about to kill her.
Yeah.
So obviously, Patricia does not like Mahler's framing of the scene.
Or Mahler.
Yeah. So
Musically.
Oh, and I just want to quickly mention something about the Cheese Whiz scene before I forget. It's a funny line, sort of. The problem is the context in which it was put in. It's like the writers came up with it before they like actually got to the scene where it was like, okay, where can we fit this line? Like, we'll like we'll write it on a post-it note, and then we'll just like we'll keep that in mind. And then when a good opportunity comes up, we'll put it in. And then they decided to put it in like the worst possible scene that they could have.
okay.
Why were there some more fat jokes in that fucking film?
We're gonna keep going, guys. Shall we?
Yeah.
Also cuts right through the immersion.
It's always about the film being too jarring, breaking immersion, sacrificing emotional resonance. These are subjective judgments made by an imaginary audience that Mahler invented for rhetorical purposes, and that's fine. But, I guess if you could consistently and impartially apply a standard to something without considering your own preferences, the resulting critique could be a kind of objective, like it's technically a judgment without personal bias. We're really stretching the definition now, though. And, like, haven't we just defined objective critique as critique that's based on any standard that isn't yours?
It's not an imaginary audience, though, if a lot of people were pointing out that the humor in The Last Jedi felt very out of place before he even made his videos.
But those are just subjective, Southpaw. Everyone just felt that way. It was like it doesn't have anything to do with the
There's
film
no
itself.
such thing as facts, only
Very
feeling.
coincidentally, there were so many people that felt, it's kind of weird that we're supposed to take this scene seriously, and then it's just a joke, and it's like, are we supposed to like be invested in the stakes of the story, or are we supposed to just, be here for Spaceballs 2? A really shitty
LIteratureDevil
Spaceballs
just
2.
died.
Oh.
It's traditional at this point. Yeah, it always comes down to this, like everyone has their own standards, therefore everything's subjective. And it's like that's not how it works. It's like that's exactly what's being implied right now. And it's like this is not.
Everyone
can be
does have their
consistent
own
with your own
standards, but standards are not made equal.
It sounds like the argument is your attention span and how sensitive you are to a certain observation of comedy or tragedy, like the scene with Hux and Poe when he does the mama joke. It's like, okay, if you actually think about that, it sounds weird. If you don't think about it and just watch the film as just an entertainment piece, haha, that's funny, let's keep going. So it's this weird idea that, okay, if I stop perceiving as sensitively as I used to, it's fine. But when you actually point this stuff out, you're like, oh yeah, that is feel. And then that you think about it for more than a second, yeah, that doesn't look right. It doesn't sound right. Why is that? And Patricia's like, well, that doesn't bother me because that's just your perspective. It's like, well, I'm not doing any massive calculus to come to this conclusion. Okay, I'm just using my eyes and ears again, and I'm just listening to the movie. So
if I were to get a large scaffolding and get myself up to the Sistine ceiling, and I just draw a bunch of dicks on the Sistine ceiling, it would still technically count as art. I transformed the Sistine ceiling into like what it was before, but this time there's dicks drawn all over it. But now you could say that maybe it doesn't have the same emotional resonance as it did before.
I think you'd be a puddle of blood on the ground in about 2 seconds if you did that, but okay. I think the Pope would come by and murder you. I think that's pretty much...
The hand of God would just come down.
Just be like, it's art though, it's subjective. And they'd be like, yeah, sure. Sure.
Like God's just kind of like, oh shit, oh well, it's fine then. I'll just won't kill you.
Like,
it's just like, yeah, sure. There's different standards. I'm of course going to factor that in, but again, if you cannot understand why it is that these scenes in The Last Jedi that we're referring to when we're talking about the bathos in them, why they would undercut the stakes and why they would kind of ruin the immersion for a lot of people, especially people who aren't used to seeing this kind of humor in the Star Wars universe and feeling it's kind of inconsistent, doesn't fit in very well. It's like maybe you're not thinking about it too critically. And the definition of critical thinking, by the way, is the objective analysis of something to come to a conclusion. So there's that.
I guess when when Patricia Taxxon does a closer look at objective art criticism, they don't use that part of their brain. They just go, nope, I'm not going to think critically. I'll think rationally. I don't know. Using some other aspect of the mental toolbox to argue.
Well, they don't use critical thinking. They use Marxist critical theory. That's what they use.
Yes. Material dialectics. Aren't those fantastic? Let's think backwards, everyone. Great idea.
Yeah, it's, instead of trying to deconstruct and break down why a scene makes you feel that way, and try to understand why it evokes a certain emotion out of you. You should just, allow yourself to feel whatever you feel. You should just go along with it and not think about it. Don't scrutinize it. It's fine.
Here's a super chat from Punished Berserker again. Sir, you are the fastest articler I've ever met on chat. Mahler's imaginary 275,000 sub audience. Well, yeah, he does have that. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he didn't have that many subs when he made that video in particular, but yeah, it was still like, I guess if your point is it resonated with enough people, like with at least that many people that subscribe to him, then sure, yeah.
At that point, why not just add your standard back on? Like, you got all of them. This really just seems unnecessary to me. Like, maybe you can determine objectively that there's inconsistencies in The Last Jedi, but I can completely objectively and impartially determine that it has porgs, and as sanctioned by the porg paradigm, The Last Jedi is the best film. It's perfect.
Sure.
So you could say the film is good because there's porgs in it, but you'd have to explain why the film is good because it has porgs. And I think you'd struggle to make up a good argument to say the film is good because it has porgs.
I was about to say, sure, you can use that standard. You can use the porg paradigm, and that can be your standard for assessing the quality of the film. And then you're going to apply that to every single film, and you're not going to do that. You want to know why? Because Patricia Taxxon hates The Rise of Skywalker, and there are porgs in it. So with the porg paradigm, that means that is the second best Star Wars movie. So it's like...
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, everyone has their own standards, sure, but some standards can be applied to other films. And what you'll find with a lot of people who argue subjectively is that they don't have a standard. They just go based on whatever they feel and whatever they like.
Yeah,
it's not about mechanics.
Just because you like an element doesn't make it this perfect thing. Like if you like cars and you're watching, I don't know, some sort of car flick, it's not suddenly the best movie ever and nothing can come close because you like cars. There's no objective conclusion you're coming to. That's obviously a bias. So well, Evan and Smud Boy, I'll have you know, I am a very devout evangelical Christian, and that means by my standard, God's Not Dead is the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. You can do that. Like I said, it's you can have a standard that you can be consistent with, but it's just a matter of how useful that is, and when it comes to assessing quality. And do whatever you want, but you can be consistent within a standard, and other people can relate to that standard. The idea of tonal clash, for example, that we've been going over. A lot of people understand that. Like with Halloween 2018, I made a video on that, and it's just tonal clash is something that a lot of people will agree is not very good when it comes to filmmaking. At least when you're trying to maintain tension or maintain dramatic weight, comedy is going to undercut that. It's tonal clash is pretty reasonable, and it can be qualified in a film.
Yeah, having a standard of okay, I don't like it when there are swear words in the movies that I watch. Therefore, the more swear words there are, the worse the movie is. The fewer there are, the better it is. It's that's not really reflective of the craftsmanship that went into the movie.
Right.
So it's a standard that you can use to measure a movie up to. I just think it's not a very well thought out standard. Same thing with, there's porgs in this movie, therefore it is great.
If it comes down to porgs or cursing, those little indications of whether the movie is good or not. It has more cursing in the movie, therefore it's worse. That would be more on the subjective level, because it's personal taste in more or less. And generally speaking, the way you used it, it'd be personal taste. Because maybe I personally don't like cursing, therefore this movie is bad because of a lot of cursing in it. That's more subjective. But if it actually harms something, if it took away from the essence for perhaps a significance of a scene or from a narrative structure overall somehow, then that would be more objectively bad.
Well, the thing is that how many swear words are in the movie or in a particular scene is just irrelevant in general to the how it's crafted.
Usually, yeah, but it's just it's usually subjective, and that sort of criticism is usually subjective because it's to the person's personal taste in that usual instance. And me personally, I think the curse words were actually enhanced the movie. If you watched something like Scarface, the curse words were fantastic in that movie.
Although,
yeah, or like The Wolf of Wall Street or Uncut Gems, those also have swear words and they fit with the world that the film's
it really
creating.
ramps up the atmosphere.
It really depends on if it fits on what kind of film it is. For example, if it's set, if it adds to the quality of the film, sometimes swearing can ground it with a little bit of profanity. Is like something we can all. It's difficult to go through a world without the profanity, but when it goes to something like Star Trek Picard, where they just kind of throw profanity in there just to be edgy, it doesn't work.
Oh, could you imagine if if Toy Story 4 ended, and then Woody leaned over to Buzz and he's like, "I'm gonna fuck that porcelain pussy," I'd be like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" I'm not expecting that kind of language in a Toy Story movie. But in general, I don't give a shit about swearing. Like that's a particular context where it's like, okay, that's not good. But
yeah, I think we can all agree it's not a standard we have for writing. Is not what you do; it's how you do it. If you want to do swearing, it's how you swear. It's the conveyance. It's the amplitude. It's all these elements. The mannerisms. All these details that make something believable. Which then comes back to our first standard of all fiction. Is verisimilitude. Is this thing believable? This fictitious thing on the screen with people moving across it and lights going on and off, is this real? And that's what we want. We want this thing to be real to us. And that's what happens. You see little flaws, you see little bumps on the road of the journey of the story, and that's everything adds up. So that's why we say The Last Jedi is one of the worst Star Wars movies, because it has all these bumps on the road, sometimes gaping holes, sometimes there is no road. And we just go, oh my God, this was made. Thank you, Ryan Johnson, for whatever you just did. Anywho, let's keep going. We have a super chat from Overseer USA. Thank you, sir. Most TLJ defenders. Capitalism is bad. Revolt and resist. Also, TLJ defenders. Consume flashy product before consuming next flashy product. Well, if you're talking about episode 9, I guess you're correct. They just kept going with that. And I don't know if everyone was happy with episode 9, so there's been a slight disturbance in the fandom with that one.
What are you talking about? The Rise of Skywalker is great. It's a totally great fitting conclusion for episode 9. It's awesome. Everyone loved it, in my opinion.
Did we just lose Literature Devil?
Okay.
Yep.
He works in mysterious ways, that Literature Devil. We're not sure.
They die now.
They die now. Oh, let's press on.
Let's get going.
Someone just said Evan and Smudboy look like a couple that aren't talking to each other anymore because both your avatars are facing away from each other.
I'm furious, and Evan's like, ugh.
We're just looking sideways. We're like, no, thank you. We're all frowning.
Someone's seriously looking for his brand.
1-800 contacts.
If you disagree, I expect a formal presentation of your evidence that there are not, in fact, any porgs in The Last Jedi, which I believe is going to be quite difficult because, okay.
But the problem would be, I know it's a joke, but if you were to properly say that the film was good because it had, well, the film was good because it had porgs, you'd have to explain why it was good because it had porgs. You can't just say the film has porgs, therefore it's good. You can't just say the film has flashy battles and that means it's good. You've got to, you can't just reference it. You have to explain it as well.
Well, this is what people say that we do. Essentially, they say like we confirm that there are plot holes inside of The Last Jedi, but you can't say that those are bad. It's like the second you do, then you're being subjective. So like what she's doing right now is like laying out objective observations. They prove it. Yeah,
bad's not an emotion. It's not a feeling. It's a description of something's quality usually. I know now it's a pretty general term because a bad is just used pretty easily, but when in talking about films in specific, you're not talking about your subjective enjoyment, you're talking about quality. Same if someone says a film is good, well, you have to explain it because that is not a subjective term. That is a term to describe quality.
Yeah, again, I always ask people to read The Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance if they want to have a philosophical look at quality and the difference between the Aristotelian dialectic and the Platonic, what's the word? Not the dialogue, or no, I can't remember the second term to describe the conversation, but it's basically what we've been doing. We talk about the classical way of thinking, which is using logic and reason, and the romantic way of thinking, which is more Platonic. So once we have that understanding of terms, we can then go into discussion properly with these people. Because I think Patricia just is going back on, well, I could just think differently, and therefore it doesn't exist, which is not what we're trying to get at when we say things physically are in reality. They're objects. These things have purposes and functions, and we can determine that by our own experiences with reading, with stories, with movies, and the function of movies themselves. Why do we have science fiction? Why do we have space operas? What's the point of that? What is a hero's journey, etc., etc. So we don't have that with Patricia. We just have, this is bad because I think so. This is bad because I think so. And
It's good because that's bugs.
And this is good because I think so, exactly.
Hey, joke's over. There's obviously some bias here. Yeah, it's arbitrary, but so is any standard.
No.
Again, art.
No.
We know what
It's not
objective
arbitrary.
standards are, and we can
we
define them. We
already-
all have the same philosophy of objective observation. We have problems, which is normal, when we argue our point why something is good or bad. It's easy to do something that's bad because we just count the errors. It's really hard to figure out what's good because we have to fall back.
It's easier to say why something doesn't work and why it than it is to say something that it why.
Right, because we're talking about a film which is interpretive to a degree, or any kind of media is largely interpretive, but we're talking about, let's say, a drama. Say, okay, how much more dramatic is this scene and why? Because we don't understand drama. We are not some psychologist experts that become writer critics that can understand everything. Everyone has an odd stance on things. Emotions, delivery, then you're adding cinematography, that's a whole other discipline. So we're going to miss things. But when we focus on the key elements, like a character's face, the emotion they're in, what they're saying, how they're saying it, how long it takes to get from plot point to plot point, all these
He's
things.
back.
Oh, he's back. Wonderful.
Yeah, Literature Devil. Patricia Taxxon just said that all standards are arbitrary. What do you feel about that?
No, they're not.
Well, says you.
I mean, here's the thing: people can have different standards, but that doesn't mean that all of them are equally arbitrary. Again, saying this movie has more swear words, therefore it's bad—that's a very arbitrary kind of thing to talk about. This is
It's a standard.
applying- Yeah,
That one's
it's
a more arbitrary standard than the next, probably. The next
much
one's
more arbitrary.
And I was
Yeah.
about to say, you can be consistent within your own standard. That's the important thing. Like what you described with the swear words, someone could use that, but then like the argumentation comes into play. There's other factors which go in. There's a lot of factors which go into like a film's quality, and like swear words don't necessarily tie in. Like maybe you could argue that, but it's like you can be very consistent within a standard if you can like if you have evidence to back up your points.
Yeah.
It's not
Like
arbitrary.
that sounds arbitrary to me, but one is also very arbitrary is like, is there any death in the story? Because most stories, I'd say about 90% of the stories I've read, someone's dying or wanting to be killed or whatever. So it's like, okay, yeah, we need a dead body to make it exciting. It's like, well, not really. But that's the stakes. We want something of high value. We don't want to just read a story about a bunch of people who want to kill each other and nothing happens. It's kind of strange.
Yeah.
So
I like, again, what people value in art is different, and I understand that, but that doesn't mean that all of a sudden all standards are equally well thought out.
The thing is, if there were some standards that weren't arbitrary in movies and film and art, then they would have to submit to the fact that The Last Jedi is bad. The idea that it might be a terribly made movie. But that can't happen, so they have to rewrite the rest of the universe so that their one movie can be acceptable.
I think they just don't want standards. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, they don't want standards.
They don't want to
Yeah.
be put into a box and say, this is the way I think, because for whatever reason, I don't know.
They want to be unique. They want to be snowflakes, right?
I don't know.
But I'm still convinced that the reason why they hate the idea of objective criticism, because a lot of these people who hate the idea of objective criticism tend to be artists, and artists tend to be sensitive people. And if there is an idea of objective criticism exists, and if something is wrong with their work, then they made a mistake. But if there's no such thing as objective criticism, and it's all subjective, then they can take criticism and say, oh, it's they are the ones who are wrong. And that kind of fits with a lot of personality, this single personality we kind of seen with a lot of these TLJ defenders. Is that the people who say, you either like this movie or we can't be friends. Those kind of people.
Yeah, it seems strange because in order to do any sort of art or media, you have to have an idea in your mind of what you think is good. You don't just say, I'm going to make a piece of crap and I can't wait to do it. And oh boy, I had fun making crap. But don't worry, I'm not concerned because it's crap. I don't care if anyone hates it. No one thinks like that. Everyone who stops what they're doing in life to make art takes a huge risk. A huge, giant creative risk, whether it's financial or time-based or friendship, whatever. And you're saying, I'm going to make the best thing of, I don't know, science fiction. I love science fiction. I'm going to make my own. I'm a great sci-fi nerd, I'm going to do it. And then people say, hey, you know what? You were in a closet for 10 years only reading Star Trek novels. Those things are really bad. Here's like Isaac Asimov. Go try that. And if they don't read that and don't like that, then that's fine. They can keep writing Star Trek novels, and that's their thing. Great, fine. But there are standards we have. There are actual quality standards of each genre. We have good writers. We have mediocre writers. There are some bad writers. I don't know how they get published still, but they do. Someone's making money somewhere, so that's how that works. So we don't just churn out crap all the time, at least in the novel world of books. So it's real.
Sometimes crap sells, but it's not because it's good, it's because it's meeting the needs of some readers. Because you can have a thriller, you can make a thriller because people love thrillers, people love romance novels. It can be horrible, but sometimes people just want something to read, something that they enjoy at a very base level. It doesn't have to be quality or even good. I remember this the Femme Nikita TV show, the Canadian version.
Oh yeah.
One of the creators said that all they were looking for was a beautiful woman to play La Femme Nikita, to play Nikita, the role of Nikita. Mm-hmm. And they happened to get, I forgot what her name was. I usually forget her name. I think it's like Peter Wilson or something like that. But they got her, and they said that it was a bonus that she could act, but it made everything so much better because not only did they have someone who was attractive in the main role, they had someone who was actually believable in the role and could actually pull off emotions and the depth of character that they required to produce the show. That was a very character-heavy show.
Maggie Q.
No, it was that's the recent one. That's like the Netflix one. They made another. They made one that's called Nikita.
Yeah.
And then they had one from I think the 80s or 90s.
Good old Canada.
Okay.
I
gotcha.
Good one.
Sorry, yeah. I didn't see any of the Nikita shows or movies. Like if you have someone that looks at The Last Jedi throne room fight and goes, okay, that's bad, I don't like it or whatever. They weren't entertained by it. Then they watch the Dark Knight Rises fights, which are categorically awful. And then they go, oh yeah, this is pretty good. I like this. This is entertaining. It's like, well, okay, what's entertaining to you, what you find cool, is arbitrary. But when you look at both movies, like both of those movies' fights have a wealth of issues of like choreography. You have these supposedly highly trained fighters that are fighting like amateurs. You have, gunmen being complete idiots and slipping on nothing. You have weapons vanishing into thin air. It's a mess. Both movies are a mess when it comes to their fight scenes and their choreography. So it's weird. It's like if you have someone that says that one is good but the other is bad, that seems rather arbitrary. But when you have someone that has a consistent standard, isn't the point of a standard to be less arbitrary?
Yeah, you're going for not necessarily generalizations, but you're going for a one size fits all. And that's why I have at least 6. Like I'm almost done my book where I talk about rules for writing, and there's these 6 major rules, and then I have 2 other rules, and you can break rules. All the things I just made, you can break them if you know how to do that. So we have standards, but it's like, you know what? You can subvert those standards if you know what you're doing, and that's all it takes. All right, let's
completely agreed. Yeah,
interpreting it. One might even argue that's what makes it art and not simply craft. What is the difference between the objective standard?
What art is art because it's arbitrary.
We'll give him that one. That's just the most silliest thing we've heard so far. Let's just keep.
I mean, when we're talking about movies or anything that tells a story, what people are looking for usually, like the standard, usually is does it have a good, consistent story that doesn't go off the rails and trying to tell no Deus Ex Machina coming in to fix your plot holes and writing mistakes. Are the characters fleshed out? Are they understandable? Are they exciting? Is everything put together well? Those are the top standard, but you don't have to always reach that standard for it to be entertaining or even successful. But
Also,
that is what we're reaching.
What did he mean by that's why it's art and not craft?
But how can you make art
can-
without craft?
Yeah, you need craft to create
of
the
some
art.
sort.
Well, I guess with
I'm
craft, you make it
confused.
better.
It's like you hire all these actors, then you just bring up some stick puppets. You're like, hey, we could do the job too.
Neil Gaiman tends to speak on how he became a better writer. His method on how he became a better writer. He started off imitating writers that he enjoyed, like many other writers do, and then he gradually kept writing and writing and writing until he found his own voice, and then it became less of a imitation work and more of a Neil Gaiman work. And he could even point to the exact book he kept in his chest up in his attic, and it was a book he made when he was I think a teenager or something around there. And the beginning of the book it was very much imitation, but the very last page of the book, at the very end of the book, he found something that sounded like Neil Gaiman, something that sounded like him. And that is where you improve. And if there's no objective criticism, then all of it was good. All of it could be seen as good or fantastic. And there's no difference, pretty much no difference at all between beginner teenager Neil Gaiman and master writer Neil Gaiman we have today.
The great thing about Gaiman and like Murakami, they're so prolific, and there's so much material of them out there that people notice patterns. And all of Gaiman's stories, like in the third act, the woman is going to say to the lead male, I don't love you anymore, or put their hand on their shoulder and walk out. It happens in almost all of his stories, and you notice that. And it's the same with Murakami. There's actually a thing called Murakami Bingo. I haven't put it on the screen here. I don't know if you guys can see that. No, it's hilarious because all his stories have this in it to a degree, and he doesn't care because he just does his own thing. But when you're reading it, it's like, yeah, he has a lot of cats. He listens to lots of jazz. There's always some weird kinky sex thing going on. There's all these weird, funny things. So this is totally normal for a writer to get in their groove and write what they feel they like. And it's strange and it's weird. It feels as if they've exhausted themselves, but they keep writing. Well, not all writers, but the really prolific ones keep doing it. And people keep buying it.
One thing that I don't like that Taxxon is trying to imply, it's like they're trying to imply that there's no kind of skill or like quality in art, which is just completely. It's one of the stances about art that I really hate. The idea that there is no quality, like you can't. So if you go to the National Gallery and you have your little stickman drawing that's absolutely terrible and has smudges and coffee marks and everything, and you walk up there and you say, "Hey, look, do you want to? This piece of art is no different to that piece of art." Everyone in the fucking room will laugh at you because there's no way. There's no way you can argue that a horrible stickman is as good as some masterful historic painting. There's no way. There is no compare there.
Again,
and that is because there is standards in art, there is quality in art, there is skill in art, and you should encourage artists to become more skillful, to like hone their craft and to get better. Art is not arbitrary by any means.
Shiny, hear me out though. Drawing dicks on the Sistine ceiling, that's art.
To a certain extent, I would guess. So at least if you're using Taxxon's definition of fucking art.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a super chat, actually. It's for Southpaw from Punished Berserker, of course, because he's, again, the most amazing articlist in the Smudcast, and he could just write everything and do homework and all that stuff. Southpaw, didn't you notice the THEME behind why the gunman fell on his $?
Theme.
As Karl Marx once said, failure the greatest teacher is.
I remember that Karl Marx. I remember that quote. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very intelligent quote from Karl Marx.
Failure the greatest teacher is.
Yeah, and
look, Punished Berserker. I know someone.
Last Jedi.
I know like crazy things sell for as art, but that's probably just because of the really stupid place art is now with modern art.
I was about
But
to say
I mean, it's
bananas
good.
being put up in museums with duct tape and
You know,
counting as
at this point, there was a lady who shoved like stuff up in herself and knitted it together and made art that way. Yeah, I know modern art doesn't have any kind of quality to it these days because it's all interpretive. But when you look at quality art, you look at like really well-made, skillful art, and you try to compare it to some other piece of art, there's things which you can see which obviously make one art better than other. If you have a piece of work that has masterful shading and a piece of art which has no shading whatsoever, if you have a piece of art where they've spent lots of time crafting the faces to look super realistic and gorgeous, and then you just have someone who hasn't spent any time or effort and they've just kind of blocked it out and looks absolutely horrible and disgusting.
Here's my thoughts.
There are standards in I'll let you talk.
Here's what I think about the notion that anything can be art, like just summed up. If everyone is super, then no one will be.
Yeah, it undermines the
I always
talent
said in high school,
that's involved.
when I was in art class, I said everyone knows how to draw. I kept saying that. So whenever you skipped art class, it's like, dude, why didn't you draw? It's like, I didn't feel like it. I was late, blah, blah. I didn't want to come. It's like, everyone, you get to be present, to have fun, to just go crazy. And yeah, maybe the teacher will come by and teach you a few things about perspective and lines and shading and light and all that stuff. But you're trying whatever you want. And if at the end of the day you're not that good at it, or you just can't perceive the object you're trying to draw in your head, that's fine. That's how you learn about at least visual art. So, but everyone has that capacity, and I can't see it. Why, if everyone has this capacity, they can't realize they can't get better at it. I don't understand that. I don't understand how there can't be some mental process that goes on that says, oh, last year I could only do stickman, now I can do form and figure drawing, now I can do acrylic paint, etc. If you get better at something, that is a process that has been taught for hundreds of years, if not thousands, and there are standards. There are very much teachable standards to achieve. So if there are teachable standards, there are teachable criticisms of those standards. It's very simple. Anyway,
just a piece of advice for anyone creating video essays: please provide some evidence. Otherwise, you're just going to say all standards are arbitrary and move on, like she just did.
Standards are arbitrary is like, that's the fancy way of saying that's just your opinion.
It is, and there's no evidence, and it's just you just moves on. It's like, where's the proof?
Yeah,
please provide something.
Standard and the Porg paradigm. Mahler, perhaps, would say that his standard is based on decades of academic study surrounding the craft of storytelling and filmmaking.
He never said
Debatable,
that.
but all right.
I've never heard him say that once.
My paradigm was...
He said that, well, these standards have been around a lot longer than before him, and they'll be around after he's gone. And
they kind of have.
I said that when I was talking to Jack. And
it's not going to work. It's like a smashing against the wall.
Yeah. Head against wall, repeat. Yeah.
Was invented by me alone, specifically as a thought experiment for this video you're watching now. However, something doesn't become more true as more people believe it, not inherently. Like, if you're determining which trebuchet slings cannonballs the farthest, you don't take a survey, you perform an experiment. What I'm saying is, exchanging your own bias for the bias of an imagined neutral third party isn't objectivity.
Okay, but we're not using bias. That's the point.
That's not what Mahler does. He doesn't have an what's this imaginary audience that she keeps referring to? Like, Mahler doesn't do.
The fact that they're calling it a bias is annoying, because the whole point of objectivity is to remove bias and say, what are you looking at? What are you hearing? What is there? You're observing reality, and you're going, this is white, this is black, this is big, this is small. And you're saying why it's good, why it's bad, why it works the way it does. That's all we're doing.
Thousands of years.
I remember talking to Rags, and the best way Rags described it is that it's kind of the scientific method of media analysis. So you look at something and you analyze it and you try and work out what it is in a sense, and it's not biased by any means. and it is extremely strange to hear it's being explained as a bias. It's like saying, "Oh, science is just a bias." It's like, no, that's not what science is. It's not any of this.
Fuck standards.
But maybe Mueller has been. He's a secret academic behind this. Behind the.
Well, Patricia Taxxon, you're never allowed to say a film is bad anymore. If there is no kind of standards, if there is no kind of idea of quality whatsoever, you can never say a film is bad. Because all films are the same, right? There's no kind of standard there. It's just how you feel.
Once you dismiss the idea of objective criticism, you can't, as a critic, you cannot say one film is bad. It's
That's what Just Right's
only
gonna
be
have
bad
to
in your
stick on.
opinion.
Yeah, Just Right, instead of his Rise of Skywalker video, he was very careful to keep saying that the film wasn't for him, that he just didn't like it. It's like you trap yourself in that box the second you say everything's
then at the end he was saying that if they made Finn and Poe into official couple, then the movie would be tangibly better.
Tangibly better. What is
Better-
that supposed to mean?
It would be better in a way that you could touch and feel, like at a tactile level with your fingertips.
If I bought the copy of the movie, it would feel a
Why?
little bit better because of that factor.
Why?
Yes, it would feel like velvet. Okay, if they made Poe and Finn into a couple, the movie, like the copy of the movie, would feel like it was made out of velvet.
And did you know that the more like Finn and Poe couples are in there, the more homosexual couples in a movie, the more the movie feels like velvet. If it was just heterosexual couples, it feels more like silk or something. I don't know.
Wait, does Just Right actually think this? Is this what he said?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, he unironically said that was his
Tangibly better.
first thing that
Tangibly
he thought
better.
was the biggest flaws. He wanted Finn and Poe to have a relationship together. That was like the first major point that he addressed.
He wanted to say objectively. He can't anymore because they're trying so hard to stay out of the box. They trap themselves in an even smaller one.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just keep going. That's ugh.
Now, if you're one of those people who follows this up by saying that yes, there is no fundamental difference between having a bias towards a lack of plot holes and a bias towards porgs, I'd like to personally congratulate you for independently discovering the concept of subjectivity. But wait, aren't there a host of examples of things which are only true because a large portion of the population agrees it is true? Like, perhaps any potential
No.
What?
Nothing is true
Let's
because
just-
a large portion of people
Let's just
agree
keep
with it.
going. This is so dumb. Let's.
I didn't hear what he was saying. Like any kind of
I
academic.
just said, isn't everything that's true based on how people perceive it, how popular, if people agree on it? Literally nothing
No,
is true
that's
if you
not-
agree on it.
Let's just.
If everyone can agree, you can punch through a wall. Doesn't mean you can punch through a brick wall. Just because people
Everyone on Earth
they
could
think a
be
certain way.
incorrect, and there could be one person in the entire world who is right about something, even though literally everyone in the Earth
Yeah.
disagrees.
This
They
is
still are true.
This is not even an argument ad populum statement. This is. I'm not sure what this is. This is some other. If everyone thinks something, it must be. I was like, no, what? Just keep going.
Thing is,
I think-
doesn't just because people don't like a film doesn't mean it's a bad film. It's more of a correlation that things that people agree to be bad films tend to be lower quality, or films people don't enjoy tend to be lower quality films. But that's more of it's not exact.
What I get
It's
out
just
of
a sign.
what I get out of Patricia saying that there is no difference between the Porg paradigm and the lack of plot holes in a film, that there's no difference between those two standards. What I'm getting out of that is that absolutely nothing matters when it comes to trying to improve your work. Nothing.
Do you know what I say to that? Fuck off.
Yeah.
academic standard for artistic quality would be arbitrary, but so is the inch, equus ferus, B flat minor, 100 yen.
No, because the inch is just how we measure a length of space. Just like how weight and time measurements are just measurements. Those things will still be that length, even if we didn't have that measurement. It doesn't change based on the measurement we create.
Yes, it
Unless
does
you-
shine.
This is really.
Time
This is.
objective.
This is so stupid.
The table, okay, so Mount Everest height didn't change because we magically invented the meter. The height was always the same. We just had a way to figure out how we measure that height. Like time. time always passed until we came up with the word for minute and seconds and hours and days.
Is this just going to be the rest of the video? We've like stopped at just 3 statements of complete like
It's
egregious
benign.
nonsense that like it's insane to even address these things. But there's no qualifiers. It's just statements that are made.
Did these people
And
go to
it's-
school? Did they,
Jack went to school.
did they drop out in high school or something? Like, what happened here?
Jack is a very educated man. I don't know Patricia's education. Whatever. Who knows? It's just don't spout nonsense in a video, which is what.
All right, let's just keep going.
All of
I-
it.
Yeah,
it's
this
just
is just
trying to
complete
debunk objectivity.
nonsense.
yeah.
They just can't accept objectivity. They can't accept the truth that objectivity exists even in film and art. They can't accept it because it's just they can't just absorb this idea, because if they do, then they have to admit that some things that they like are objectively
Low
bad,
quality.
not just arbitrarily bad, but
Why is there a
objectively bad.
picture of someone with Chuck E. Cheese tokens on the
I
screen?
think they're saying currency.
Because
Currency
everyone-
only
Money
has
is
Everyone
subjective.
believes a
worth.
$100 bill is because we believe a $100 bill is worth $100. It's worth $100.
Hey, it's my opinion that those.
But that's not
those
because
tokens
some
are
people
actually-
believe. It's because it actually does. Like that dollar is actually worth a certain amount of currency.
No, it's
That's
my
not-
opinion that it's worth nothing.
This is the level that you have to go at, where money and time are subjective. I don't want to
if
go
money's
to this
subjective,
magical
throw
world.
your money out the window.
All to save your Star Wars Space Wizard movie. And it's like,
Time and currency are a social construct.
Time never passed until society was created, and we declared time shall move forwards.
Math is a social construct. You
Oh,
see, I can
boy.
say 1 + 7 = 4 if the word for 7 just replaces
I
3.
can say
in
if
my-
I have one potato and I have
interpretation.
another potato, it makes 10 potatoes.
Yes,
and just
exactly.
because a bunch of people don't, and just because a bunch of people get together and believe that objectivity in film and art isn't a thing, doesn't mean it's not a thing. So that's correct. Because a lot of people think something is true, doesn't mean it's true.
All right,
I still have 12
let's just keep
minutes to
going.
go.
I'm getting a bit of a headache right now, but okay.
Socially constructed facts aren't objective truth when we take it literally, but when we soften the definition to a more colloquial framework, it's not hard to picture being objective in reference to, say, a budget. Simply pointing out that the value of $1 is arbitrary wouldn't be an adequate argument.
But it's not arbitrary. While you could say the value of $1 is a social construct, it is not arbitrary. Someone didn't throw a pin on the wall and say, "Oh, $1 is going to be worth this much." They said,
Did you
"Okay,
just
well,
start this video off saying that the premise is that reality is the way we perceive it. Like, this is not reality being perceived the way we.
I shouldn't have to argue the
This is-
value of $1 and the rate of inflation and the amount of currency within a system. Like, this is all mathematically provable. I don't have to
like
talk about these
someone
things.
just kind of like rolls a dice, and that's how much the dollar is going to be worth at that specific." They roll
Yeah,
the dice
I
again.
shouldn't
knowing
have to
that's worth
explain this to
nothing.
anyone, right? We're okay. All right, we're good with it.
No, because laughing isn't an argument, apparently.
There's 1,000. You can
So
have
stupid.
every American
explain
if every American in the United States believed $1 was $100, it wouldn't be true. It's set by something else.
Yeah, like I said, everyone in the world could disagree with you, but you could still be correct. You could still be telling the truth. It doesn't make it true that everyone agrees or
I
disagrees.
think it's something like the worth of the dollar or the pound isn't it originally based off of how much gold was
Yes.
owned by the certain country. So therefore, it's not arbitrary by any means. It's based on the value of gold or how much gold there is or how much gold is owned by a certain country.
In my opinion, this $20 bill is worth $5,000.
Therefore, it's worth
Okay,
$5,000.
this is hurting my brain, guys. I'm going to stop you right now. Here's a super chat from DGM Voices. Thank you, sir. Miss Taxxon, I enjoy both Matrix sequels, but they're bad. Now you try. Okay.
I enjoy the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie. I like that movie. Doesn't mean it's good.
I enjoy The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's a really bad movie, but I enjoy the hell out of it.
I kind of like bad movies. I kind of like B movie, B grade, C grade movies.
Yeah, as
Doesn't
long
mean
as
they're
I-
good.
Yeah, I think it's like how bad it is and how it pisses me off, like that's subjective. Like someone could look at The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and to them that's a movie that just it's so bad it pisses them off. It's just a movie that's like it's so bad it's entertaining to me. And there's also some aspects that I unironically enjoy about it, but like not the film as a whole.
All right, let's keep going before I forget what she says, because this is hurting.
This is getting annoying at this point, but let's once
You're
again
getting
argue
annoying
from a
at this
position
point.
of practicality. Like, there is a pretty well set in stone imperative for any given society to agree on, say, the definitions of words, because that's how we communicate. Definitions aren't objective. There's just a tangible benefit to being able to share thoughts and feelings.
Wait. Okay. When you have words and you have a lexicon that lasts hundreds and hundreds of years, this is the same argument Jack was making to me, by the way. I remember this. You could have multiple definitions for that word, but now that we have digital memory, those definitions don't go away. They can be changed, but they're never gone. So you'll have
definitions
One's
sort
never
of
really
have
gone.
like words kind of have shared understandings, and that's like kind of the purpose of a definition. But like what's in the dictionary is, you could probably say, objective. It's like words can have different meaning, but it's like
So is the argument now that objectivity does not exist at all? Because what does the definition of words have to do with the objectivity or subjectivity of film and art?
In my opinion, the sun is a starfish because I have redefined starfish to mean star.
And you can do that with slang. You can, and maybe if over 100 years everyone uses the term starfish or whatever, and that will be added to that, but it will never be removed. Like you won't just change foot into helicopter. These things just don't arbitrarily happen.
Well, it won't mean the same thing as what a helicopter means now, but yeah, you could totally change the word that we use for what we call our feet now to helicopters. Get your helicopters in your shoes.
The thing is that words are used sort of,
just to describe something, describe its properties or describe what it is in some way, shape, or form. So it's not arbitrary by any means.
Words change over time. That's a fact. It just changed to what we all agree upon. How they become familiar to us. I remember that meat used to. I read in a semantics book once that meat used to reference like the whole meal until it just became the parts of the animal. And we also have that whole war between Normandy. I forgot the Battle of Hastings. That one really determined a bunch of words we have today. It's words change over time. We have colloquialisms. We have slang. Things change. Okay, but we have definitions because the definitions kind of prove to us how these words are changing and what they mean to us today. I mean, we had recently in the recent years we had several people who have changed certain movements to fit their own ends, and then try to defend their actions by pointing to definition in a dictionary. And then we have the dictionary, Webster's dictionary, kind of change definitions around to suit political agendas sometimes.
There is a very famous, I can't remember, it was Gottlieb or some, I'm trying to remember the actual philosopher who made this reference. There's an argument between sense and reference, or Sens and Bedeutung, which is just the same German term. This is like a first-year philosophy argument. I mean, I'm really feeling stupid just trying to remember what I did in university, but this is not an argument that's worth considering, folk. Okay? Yes, there's a certain flexibility to language, but how do I explain this? I don't think I want to explain it. This is so dumb. We have words for reasons. We have slang for a reason. It's the meaning and reference behind things that give it value. I agree, yes. And we could have the word bad mean good after it's popularized by like Michael Jackson or what have you, but the original meaning does not go away because we have memory and we have lots and lots of paper and lots of computers, and it just gets added to. It doesn't get removed. It gets added to. The word gets modified with more meanings. And you can use the same word, and you have to say, wait a second, that's a loaded word. What did you mean by that? And then you ask that question.
Yeah, one word in one country could mean something totally different in another country. It could be one word that's okay in America could be a horrible insult somewhere else.
I was
But
about
if
to say lift an elevator, like versus in Britain and America. Like it's an elevator here. It's in America.
It's a lift.
It's a lift
It's a
in
lift.
Europe. Yeah.
It's like chips or crisps.
yeah,
Fucking
exactly.
crisps. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not what do you mean you fucking call them chips? You stupid American fucks.
All hail,
Nice
all
avatar,
hail.
Southpaw.
That's my response to all
yeah.
of this conversation.
I just found out that there's apparently a DC Comics supervillain named Starro who is
Yes.
an alien starfish that's literally the size of a star. And
Make that the size. Make that your avatar from the rest of your life. Now that's gonna be.
Okay, we got a
I
super
said
chat
don't question it.
from Zach. Oh, we got two. Zach, the TSM Major. Thanks, Zach. Are you going to do a response video to AT chat? I don't know what we need to do a response video on. I think we covered enough of his videos.
Well, I think maybe more specific about what's been happening on Twitter and what he's.
I've ignored it. I don't think it's a big deal, honestly. He could do
Yeah,
that.
there's no benefit coming from that, I don't think.
Unless it escalates, I don't think we need to respond to it properly, officially.
Yeah, it's not worth our time. Anywho, super chat from WD Frost. Thank you, sir. Is this video worth considering then? I would say at this point, no. It's gone off into inferior, uneducated, first-year philosophy nonsense. So, no, it's not worth your time.
Things simply by vibrating our throat flaps at each other. See, watch, I'll do it now.
Oh my god.
The fact of the matter is that socially constructed facts are
Okay, the difference is that we have words are just basically sounds that we can enunciate with our mouth.
But they have. So someone just put in the chat. Yeah, words have meaning. It's not the word itself. It's the meaning behind that word.
I think that there's a language that's done through clicking, like with like clicks of the mouth. That's language. There's
It's
different
agreed
forms of
upon
language.
meaning. It's an agreed upon meaning.
The meaning is the important part.
If I come into a society where I walk into a country and they speak English, and you use a word that you think is normal in your country, and then everyone else just gasps at you. They say, okay, you use a bad word. That's a terrible word to use in this country. But if I go back to America or something like that, and I use it, it's normal. It's normal there, so it's not going to cause anyone to become upset. But the thing is, if I come into the same American bar or something like that, and I use all sorts of wrong words, like I can't have the proper syntax, or I use words wrong, then they'll think I'm foreign, or they'll think that I haven't been educated that well, and I can't form a sentence correctly. It's because it's all been agreed upon. It's because that one singular person has the opinion or the view that the words that they're using are correct in that setting doesn't mean it's correct. It's because their opinion says it's correct doesn't mean it's correct. It's what the society at that moment feels, that how they use those words.
This is, again, first year philosophy of language. It's just, I can't believe he just made some guttural noises.
And somehow this is supposed to prove to us that objectivity in film and art doesn't exist.
I can't take him seriously anymore, or her seriously. This is ridiculous.
How does the changing value of words, changing definitions of words over time, the evolution of words over time, prove to us that objectivity in film and art doesn't exist? Yes, words change. Okay, so what?
Didn't I just do that? Oh, there's more. Oh, thank God.
There's more.
There's more. I could change the topic. Thank you. Punished Berserker. Oh, was that the sound of Taxxon? Oh, shut up. Did not want to have that in. Zach, the TSM Major. TSM is the Telecommunications Systems Management. Thank you, Zach. That is an interesting acronym. I appreciate the big, long words.
You happy that you changed the subject now?
No, I'm not. Shut up. Okay, I'm ready to quit. This is horrible. This is the worst
another one coming in.
video we've ever covered. This is hurting me philosophically, guys. It makes me want to go back and read my first year philosophy textbooks just to remember how stupid this is. It just
You have another super chat, Spud.
Thanks. Or an Albert Mazel. Thank you, sir. Fist of the South Star, defender of objectivity.
The blessed South Star.
If you, I don't know if you've noticed, Smud, but I have a new profile picture. Fist of the South Star, Fist of the North Star.
Oh, it's a giant. What is that?
That's apparently that's a real DC supervillain named Starro,
Starro.
a starfish the size of a star.
What?
All I said was, in my opinion, the sun is a starfish because I have redefined starfish to mean a star. And then someone said, "Wait, you mean DC Starro?" I'm like, Starro, and then I just Google it and I went into like a little giggle fit. That was a bit subdued as you guys were talking. Because
is that a Jack Kirby thing? What is that? Is that recent?
Starro was created by Gardner Fox and Mike Sikowski. Mike Sikowski in 1960.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. All right, the '60s, where everything awesome.
What if LIteratureDevil would be on this since he's the comic guy?
No, that's too random. That's crazy. Okay, let's keep going. Unfortunately.
Oh God, it's really the chat. So Taxxon, how's your sex life? Rancor
a
noise.
shared objective artistic standard, I need to be shown the societal benefit of such a standard.
No. Why? Why would you need a societal benefit? What do you? Let's just keep going.
Which leads us right into.
Oh yeah, he has parts. I forgot. Yeah.
Oh fuck's sake.
Part 4. Why objectivity? I've been dancing around this particular issue for most of the video.
Oh no.
Like, even assuming that I've...
This is happening again.
Yeah, the response that was a few days ago. Did you see that?
No.
I just posted in the chat. We can probably read it out at the end, but her thoughts are very clear.
All right.
Twitter.
Been making good arguments so far.
I'll just read out the tweet. So, weird how you can spend months formulating an argument, making sure it's clear and concise as possible, but then the day after, a bunch of randos half-ass a 3-hour live stream responding to the missing the point of everything, and you say you've been owned anyways.
There's more. It goes on.
Oh, fuck's sake. I beg of you, please watch the video you're responding to before you go live. Take notes on it so you don't have to come up with responses half-heard statements on the fly and look like dumbasses. Me and Jack thinking of responding to this with our own stream because the wholehearted disaster. They can't stop kicking themselves in the face. My conception of Smudboy being a straw man mauler has not been shifted. I highlight when I say that intent cannot be observed within the art, and their explanation of confusion drowned out the part where I explained what that means, and they pause for like half an hour. Witness Smudboy explain to me the interior intent of a piece of art while my video is paused in the middle of the word infer.
Whatever. Really, I do not care. Flat out.
That's just your opinion, Taxxon.
Whatever. I blow off. I'm sorry.
It's just your opinion, Patricia.
Unbelievable.
Okay, look, Patricia.
I said it in the first thing. This is not going to do anything. This is not going to be productive. I don't know why the hell
Taxxon's video is bad, then therefore it's bad.
That is such a horrible. This video is shit. I'm sorry.
This is perhaps the worst. It's like, say you failed first year philosophy and you say, I'm smarter than all those dead guys that are geniuses. I'm just gonna make up my own philosophy about language.
You said art and money and measurements are not subjective, arbitrary. Like time, oh, for fuck's sake, time still fucking passes. Before the measurement was invented, it's not a social construct.
There's reasons why we have 60 seconds and not 65 seconds, etc., etc. This is ignorance combined with egoism. This is like, I'm smarter than everyone else because you can't think like a human, because humans aren't that intelligent, even though we are fairly smart. We know how things work. We know why things work. We know the circumferences of the Earth. All these wonderful formula we've created over the years.
And the reason why we do this as a stream is because there's so much shit here we respond to. Imagine trying to edit all these fucking arguments to, like, Jesus Christ. Like, Smud would die of exhaustion from editing this. He almost died from exhaustion just editing, was it a film night? Like the movie night when we watched Rise of Skywalker. That took a week.
That took a few weeks. That was, yeah.
A few weeks.
I want to, like, die watching this video.
But in what way are we straw manning?
They'd say we're missing the point. We're missing the point. We're not understanding. We're not taking the arguments at their value, and that's what all this is.
You know what?
I would invite Patricia on to, like, have a discussion, but I honestly don't.
Same here.
If Pat wants to come on, I'd be happy to bring them on. I will have a series of questions to go through. Because this
they're probably going to say that they're probably going to say, though, that we're going to need to cut it down if maybe Jack will want to come on too, or they'll just want to have it one-on-one so they can have a ballot.
We're not doing Jack. We're never ever talking to Jack.
I mean, like, Patricia seems like, you know, a nice person who's really chill when she's with JXE. So it's like I'm not of the disposition that she's some horrible person who.
Well, I don't think she's horrible
is
whatsoever.
Incapable of like a friendly conversation. So, like, I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Yes,
but the way, the lack of, just the way the attitude just has towards us in this one tweet alone.
There's a huge communication breakdown that I'm seeing here, and I'd like it for both sides to try to meet together and come to an agreement, you know, and if I have to sit that one out, I will sit that one out.
I'm more than happy to sit out if, like, I don't particularly care to be on a stream, because I just personally, I do like discussion, I do like debate, but when it becomes to people like Patricia Taxxon, I don't think it's going to be that productive. I'm more than happy to let you guys discuss it, but I'll probably end up stepping out of that.
Yeah. Also, the whole thing with, like,
go on.
Well, the whole thing with, like, we're supposedly strawmanning her when we're watching the video and we're responding directly to what she is saying. And I assume that in the previous stream you guys were, like, amending whenever you know, you continue the video, and then there was some additional context that you guys were missing initially, and I don't know. It seems like
apparently so Smud. So someone responded saying, "All I hear in this stream is Rag's literal fucking awful smug voice."
What?
So someone put in this. All I needed if it's topped off was Rag's literal fucking smug.
Rag's literal. Wait, was Rags in the stream?
No.
Then that's not Rag's literal voice.
It's not the.
I know what literal is. Do you not know what that means?
Perfect.
Do you not know what literal means? Literal.
I could get Rags on if you guys want. I could.
All I mean that in order for it to be all perfect, like, it's just another, like, EFAP or whatever. It would be Rags' voice is what they're trying to say, I think.
Something like that. And seriously, I've never stood by the idea that, like, you need quote unquote balance in the discussion. You need to have, like, the same amount of people talking to the same amount of people. Go watch the stream where we were talking to John.
It's difficult to have one person arguing against, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 because you've got being bombarded with points. I can understand not wanting to be outnumbered, but we're just looking for a discussion here, not particularly a debate. We're just here to talk. And really, with the John discussion, I think there was too many people there, and it was very difficult for anyone to get a word in edgewise.
And we still did have a good conversation, though. It was just a little bit scatterbrained. But yeah, we're not going to attack people. We're very welcome to have you on.
At all. We never attacked him. We had a great discussion.
Hold on. There's a fellow in chat that just said the quote was, "All that's missing is Rags." Is that what they said?
Yeah, they said.
I'll reread it.
All that's missing is Rags' literal voice.
Literal.
Okay, so, like, if you were there, I suppose.
I misheard that then. My bad.
Like, if we all talked as Rags.
It might be that I misread it.
All right, let's go to the super chat
from
Jake the Surgeon. Thank you, sir. Bring Jay on with Patty Chen, then kick Jay. Oh.
Invite Jay on just to kick him.
I guess that's a thing.
I thought Smudboy was the J of the stream because he hadn't seen. Well, until we showed it to him, we hadn't seen The Rise of Skywalker.
Well, for good reason, because I don't care.
Apparently nobody did. Nobody cared about Rise of Skywalker, especially not the Star Wars fans.
Let's just move on. This is a bunch of
this. I don't even
nonsense.
think we should bother. But there's 10 minutes left. I don't think this is worth our time. This is someone who's failed philosophy and just decided to write an essay, and no one corrected it. No one checked it out. No tutorial leader was there. Nothing. This is a bunch of hogwash. And I would be happy to have Patricia on, and I'll ask him all the questions that make this not hogwash if they want.
Not him.
Sorry.
Don't want to be
easiest way to convince
doing
me to
this
try
pronoun.
finding that thing with you is to show me what we'd get if I were swayed to your side. There's a handful of explanations I've heard as to the societal benefit of a shared objective standard for artistic quality. I'll go through them from worst to best. First, and worst, is the idea that foregoing objectivity will remove the incentive that critics have to represent their targets accurately.
We don't care. We really don't care what your opinion is. That's not a problem. That's... What? This... No. What does it... What the... We... What value does objective criticism have? I don't know. Being accurate. Being right. Having proper eyeballs.
If you can say why someone... Okay, so if I was talking to another VFX artist and I showed them my work, and they said, "Oh, look, your work's good, but you need to work a little bit more on texturing. It's a little bit flat. Your roughness maps look like spilt coffee. You need to improve that. Here you can do this, that, and the other."
You could just say,
And
"No, I don't."
that's a very useful criticism. It's like I can either say yes, I can do that, and I'll work on it to improve my work because you've referenced, and explained why why it's not very good.
Yeah, you take an expert, you ask their opinion, and they say, well, this is bad because X, Y, Z. And it's not my opinion. It's literally what's on the screen, or it's literally what I see and hear.
It's easier to say within visual effects because it's a lot more technical, and it's to that extent, it's a lot more easier to point out and explain because it's not quite as
every single
artsy,
element
in a
of
sense.
art can be analyzed because there's someone who's done it or has done it before. And they say, look, this is what the technique they're using. This is how you do it right. And this is how you do it wrong. And that's as simple as it gets.
If a visual effects artist said that's just your opinion that it's bad visual effects, they would go out of business because they would never improve. They would never do fuck all.
Once you get to a certain level, I remember I don't know if you go to photography boards or what have you, like you post a picture and people evaluate it. And once you get to a certain level, it's like, everything's good. Like they've done the basics. They got the light, they got the aperture, the focus is good, the form, the subject and the background. Like after a certain point, everything's good. Once you're at that certain level, you could nitpick here and there. That's fine, but that's art. You get to that quality, and everyone can appreciate it because they've seen what you've done, and they can say, well, maybe the lighting could be better. It's too dark. There's not enough bleed effect. There's not enough haze around the sunlight or whatever. All sorts of little details. That's great because you get to learn about those techniques. But that's the art. It's with writing. It's with doing cinematography. It's with doing painting. It's the same thing.
I've seen several critics. Maybe critics disagree on one movie. Whether one critic might say this movie is bad for X, Y, and Z reasons, and maybe another critic would say that the movie is good and that these reasons don't matter. But the thing is, they're both using one standard. It's just how the difference here is how the standard is applied by these different critics. So they could say, for example, that this character was done poorly in this movie for X, Y, and Z reasons, and then another critic can come in and say, no, the reasons why you say it was done poorly were fixed by these points that you missed somewhere else in the movie. Maybe the critic might have missed something, but it seems to me from critics I've seen that disagree with each other, it's because they're applying the same standard differently based on the elements they see in different projects.
Okay.
This is
Super
the worst
chat.
because I've already shown that the...
All right, let's see the super chat. Thank you, Jake the Surgeon. Also just joined, have we reached peak Movie Bob word salad? Oh, no. Let's see. Movie Bob is a whole other beast.
He's another animal.
That
entirely.
is
The words that are being used, they're put together coherent. However, the problem is that the way what they're describing and meaning makes no fucking sense.
it's that in bad taste. I mean, let's just say Movie Bob has the most bizarre taste.
What is it now?
Just Jack's take.
The video we're currently watching, Jack Saint did a tweet about, said this video by Patricia Taxxon is probably the most straightforward and comprehensive take on the objective media criticism I've seen on YouTube. I sincerely recommend checking this out.
Oh, well, that's
I
good.
seriously recommend to not check this out. Just
This
save
video
brain.
is anything but straightforward. That is the last thing I would describe this thing as. This is a scatterbrained mess.
I am so much more confused about what the positions are of Patricia Taxxon and Jack Saint than I was before I started watching this video.
Same here.
So, I mean, is the argument, because when they start talking about money and time and stuff like that, is the argument supposed to be that objectivity doesn't exist at all, or that we have things that exist subjectively, therefore we have art and film that should exist subjectively and not objectively? So what's the actual argument in that, in linking money and time and all this stuff to film critique?
Yeah, but even the concept of consensus is just, it doesn't guarantee anything as being good or bad. Like, this is a strange series of questions.
I'm not sure to wrap my head around what the argument specifically is linking these items to film critique. It doesn't, because it's either is objectivity not anywhere at all, or is it supposed to be trying to teach us that yes, there are things that exist in our society that exist solely subjectively, but remain true nonetheless.
Well, even if we have like apples and apples, like there's this concept in science called incommensurability or commensurability, where you define terms based on like similar variables. Now, just because we have like this, standard that everyone agrees upon doesn't mean we can't accurately evaluate two different things. It's just, you have these other variables that you didn't account for or didn't see or didn't perceive, and then you can evaluate them. That's the beauty of it. You argue. You don't just go, hey, here's my experiment. I created fire. Like, well, how'd you do that? Well, I did stuff. It's like you talk about it. You show examples. He even mentioned experiments, or she mentioned experiments. It's like, yeah, exactly. We argue. We don't just say, hey, you know what? Batman, the third movie is the best movie ever. And you're like, what? Why? How? And you critique it, and you find out. You have standards. You have elements. And you could say those standards are arbitrary, but if you apply them to other movies, they're not. They work with like tight writing, tight dialogue, a scene that doesn't go on for 10 minutes, showing us nothing, plot development that goes nowhere, asides that go nowhere. There's all sorts of things that you don't do. And then you evaluate the things you do as being good or bad or being of a higher quality because they hit all those markers. Anywho.
Amount of bias has no correlation with how well represented the work is. Any critique that gives a value judgment must contain bias.
Okay, so what Patty Chen just said. So no amount of bias affects how good the work is. Is that what was just said?
Anytime you have a value judgment, like this is good or bad, it has to involve bias.
Okay.
That's what they're saying.
So yeah, so every time you have a judgment of, like good or bad, it must involve bias. That's the argument being made.
Right, which is illogical because you have plenty of examples of bricks that are not balls or objects that are not something else. And they're objectively bad X objects. So it's just a strange thing. Like you watch The Room and you're like, okay, Tommy Wiseau cannot act. Like his delivery is horrible.
That's what makes it very entertaining because you can't act. That's why people like fail compilations. They're called fail compilations because they're not good at what they're doing. In fact, the opposite is true, but it's still entertaining.
No, it's just your opinion that if I if I decide to while skateboarding, I'm going to jump on like a rail that's going up a flight of steps, right? And then something goes awry and I face plant into the concrete. That doesn't mean I'm a bad skateboarder.
Yeah, it's just bias is the exact reason we use objective critique, because we don't want to be biased. We want a clear vision of what we're talking about so we can critically think of things. We can't just imagine Raylo is a thing, and it's amazing, and it's magical and wonderful and romantic, and it's the best part of the movie without understanding what the heck is going on screen. There's reasons why the movie sucks. I think there's a few that are why it's good. I just can't think of any right now.
I mean, while perhaps nothing can be objectively pure bad or good, in a real life frame of reference, you can be objectively good or bad at or as something. I am, for example, an objectively bad soccer player. As in, by any definition you can set for a soccer player,
Football.
I'm the one, or football. Well, both, honestly.
There's your language there. The language is different. There you go.
Well, I am okay. Fine. I am a bad football player, and that can apply to whatever definition of football you're going to apply, right?
Oh, you mean the running around with the pigskin under your arm?
Yeah. Look, like I'm by any definition that you can set for a football player, like I'm the one trying to hump the goalposts. Okay, I am objectively awful at football. In the end, then you have to ask yourself whether you're talking about the pure philosophical concepts of good and evil, or whether you're just trying to address a specific frame of reference and you just don't want to.
Here's 2 super chats, one from Oren Albert Mazel. This video is seriously literally killing me.
Okay, admittedly, I fucked up because I reacted as though Patricia said literally Rag's voice, and I think that I misheard what Shiny said.
Right. That's
So-
fine. That's fine.
I might have
my
just
bad.
misread the tweet itself.
I'll get the next one.
Jake the Surgeon, Movie Bob is an entire ecosystem. Oh
He's an
my!
entire ecosystem.
I don't know what habitat he would be inside. I think he's kind of in his own world half the time, isn't he?
like Tommy Wiseau's planet, Tommy Planet or Wiseau Planet.
So Planet was so, yeah.
Yeah.
No matter how well-founded it is, there are indeed porgs in The Last Jedi. Next up is the argument that
Wait, what? That's it? Anytime you make an objective value judgment, it has to be biased, and there are porgs in the movie, and then you just change the topic.
Evidence. Who needs it?
Remember, this video was absolutely great, and it was clear, and it was concise.
Took
This
months
video
to
by
make.
Patricia
really the
Taxxon is
best
probably the most straightforward and comprehensive take on objective media criticism I've seen on YouTube. That means, Jack, you suck at making objective critique videos, and this person.
Yeah, maybe you should just watch something better. That's my recommendation.
So if you had a story that followed essentially the hero's journey, and you had everything set up, you had the main quest that the hero goes on, you had the mentor, you had all the obstacles they overcome, the bad guys, the army, the toppling an oppressive government, which every good person should do. But but if you had the same story that pretty much Luke Skywalker should do, like Luke Skywalker ran through, but you had Luke Skywalker run through the story properly, and you had the original trilogy where he goes across his hero's journey and then fights the bad guy at the end and wins, as opposed to one that starts off like Luke Skywalker did, but kind of like he gives up the middle of it and someone else kills the bad guy at the end, and kind of just snaps cycles in half. All the meaning is kind of taken away. All the he doesn't learn anything. No mentor. Those could be objective. Those could be subjectively the same. Those are the same. Those are just as good. Not one of those stories is inferior to the other. If one just follows no pattern of storytelling, no critique, or takes in no critique and follows has no tropes, gives you no substance and no development of character, and just kind of piddles out right in the middle of the movie, as opposed to Luke's journey. Those are not, one is not inferior to the other and one is not superior to the other. That's what they're trying to say here.
It's very similar to the argument that we need to know the intention of the author for this stuff, whereas we can look at the function of a movie the same way we look at the premise of a story. By the first few scenes, there's a hero running around, he's doing something, he has some flaws, he's talking to people. This is probably a hero's journey story. That's what we do with objects. It's the premise. What is the point? What's the function of this thing? What does it do? It's supposed to do X. Is it doing X? Is it doing it well? Great. It's a good object. Fine. That's all it is. Understanding the premise of a story.
A picture of a stick figure running at a castle is just as good, apparently, as a full depiction of a famous medieval siege.
Yeah, the whole budget for Lord of the Rings was just a waste. Why did they do that? Took all those years.
had some guy in like a gray shirt be Gandalf,
Yeah,
and
let's do
had
that.
some short guy be Frodo. Have a kitchen knife be Sting.
make some humming noises when it gets pulled out.
No,
Some
no,
blue
no, no other reason, no parody or anything like that. Just they do it an honest depiction of Lord of the Rings for a
And without-
blockbuster movie.
But objective standards, artists will have free reign to make whatever bullshit they like, and we will be inundated with endless bananas taped to endless walls, all surrounded by what amounts to artistic snake oil salesman routines.
Yeah. Essentially, if there's no standards, there's no actual history of making art, then yeah.
If there's no objective standard, why should we listen to critics? Why should we listen to them at all? Take their opinions seriously or their critiques seriously?
Hey,
Yeah,
Smudboy.
that's just natural. Like the quality of art is going to decrease if people do not care about these things, and if people are not listening to criticism. Like standards are going to disappear.
If artists do not take in criticism and learn to improve their work, then the quality of art overall will decline.
Hey, Smudboy.
What's up?
What do you think of that book that I had you review? I had you looking over the one that I wrote, the one I definitely wrote, and this is not at all an analogy or a metaphor or anything. What do you think of it?
I honestly don't know what you're talking about.
He's trying to say
I'm
that if
being
he,
sarcastic, but
yeah, no,
I am so defeated. I'm just like, oh.
so
saying that he gave you a book to look
Video
over.
drained his
Okay,
soul. He's like,
literature devil. What did you think of that book that I had you look over? What did you think of my manuscript?
Oh, it's just awful. There's not enough ninjas in it. Okay, you had to put more ninjas in there for it to be objectively better. Okay.
Hey, fuck you, man. I'm not. I don't have to listen to you. All right. It's good if I say that it's good.
If I just believe strong enough.
Yeah, I don't
people
have to
will
listen to you or your criticism. Fuck your criticism.
Like, I present you like a visual. I work in a visual effects studio. I go up to the effects supervisor and I say, "Look, here's my work," and it's like a 100 by 100 pixel render of just a spinning ball. And it's like, what the fuck is this? You were supposed to give me a spaceship. I needed to be flying in the air as Gandalf rides across it on his space horse. And it's like, well, I want to do a ball. It's like, well, no, you can't do a ball. You have to do this effect. It's what you on about. It's like, no, it's subjective. Fuck off.
I released a video tomorrow with a bunch of birds and trees going slowly with huge saturation over, and I just say that there's no such thing as standards. Oh wait, that's the video we're watching now.
Because there's been so many instances where I've listened to professors and artists and writers speak about this, how to write a better book, how to improve your characterization, how to improve your narrative overall, and they've all essentially done the same things. Well, essentially come to the same conclusions. There's maybe different approaches on how to get there, different methods on how to get there, different ways of thinking, different ways to approach it, but they all say pretty much the same thing.
Well, like I said, Literature Devil, what they will say in response is that, like, professors don't teach you how to write better stories. They teach you how to write stories that people will, like, respond better to, that, like, people will popularly enjoy. That's all that teachers do when it comes to writing. That's what
That's obviously what they do in art as well. That's what they teach you in art. That's what they teach you in visual effects. That's what they teach you in acting. Of course, they don't teach you anything. They just teach you They don't teach you anything of any kind of standard of quality. What is quality?
If a teacher was going to tell us, if the whole thing of a teacher, of a writing teacher, a creative writing teacher, was to teach us how to write books and create stories just to sell or that people will universally enjoy, then you wouldn't have to go into depth. All you have to do is just teach us how to write thrillers and romances. And just do the most basic
These are the same
stuff.
people that would bring up like Campbell's work.
You can just make up a standard that wasn't the intent of the movie that's in question, just to say that the film fails at that standard. So, for instance, you know what? That Evan, that movie Gettysburg, it doesn't get preachy enough about how awful slavery was. They need to be a lot more preachy. Okay, Gettysburg is a bad movie because they don't spend enough time preaching about how bad slavery is. Never mind the fact that there's a handful of scenes that do address slavery and make it clear that the Confederates are fighting for slavery and the Union is fighting to free the slaves. No, it's you know what? It's not intersectional enough. There aren't enough women in the Union Army. Okay, we need more non-binary and women, people. Women of color in the Union Army fighting against the Confederates. That's what Gettysburg needed.
That would really fly back in a period piece for sure.
Absolutely. No. Look, I just get to go ahead and make that standard up, and it's just as arbitrary as yours. Okay,
It's just my opinion, man.
There is nothing that makes your standard for what would make a good period piece, any better or more valid than mine. The movie fails the Bedell test, guys. It's bad. Okay.
I'm gonna quit this stream early. Not right now, but pretty soon, because this is just a waste. This is a waste of time. I'm telling you right now. This is horrible. We're learning nothing. This is not even a joke anymore. This is just sad.
To put into perspective, we finished ATHE chats videos, we finished Wit and Folly's videos, but this is one of the most I choose to quit.
I watched Toy Story 4 3 times. I have watched The Dark Knight Rises 6 times. I have watched The Last Jedi twice. I can't get through this.
Well, this is the current part of the video where Taxxon is trying to make a joke about how objectivity is impossible and trying to downplay standards.
Weren't you saying that I was lying when I said I'd prefer to watch a Wit and Folly video over this?
Yeah, but that was before he said the most insane series of things.
No, I actually would prefer a Wit and Folly video.
Wit and Folly is whimsical and it's all pretty and pixies and fairies.
It's enjoyable. It's aesthetically pleasing.
This is like, I don't know how language works, therefore it doesn't. And you're like, no.
Language is arbitrary. Currency is arbitrary. Art is arbitrary.
The
time is arbitrary.
The laughing cavalier says, "Your claim that we have lost the battle is entirely subjective." Robert E. Lee.
There will be no surrender.
Oh my God.
Look, just because you defeated all my armies, killed all my men, are now surrounding me with muskets, does not mean
you've won.
We lost.
It's subjective.
Just because I sent my men on a suicide charge across an open field and they got slaughtered does not mean that was a bad decision, okay?
Yeah, maybe I could have done something else. Doesn't make one decision more inferior than the other, okay, guys? It's just different. It's subjective. One decision led to my entire army being destroyed, and the other one probably would have gotten us victory. But, one decision is not inferior to the other, okay?
All right, let's see what Taxxon has to say about standards again.
Criticism will die, as without objective standards, there is no way to determine quality or inferiority. My problem with this is twofold. For one, bitch, that's a good thing.
Okay, fuck off. This is done. I'm done.
What?
Forget this.
So
I'm finished.
criticism.
I'm not listening to this crap anymore.
Criticism going is a good thing. What the fuck?
We're done. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining us.
That is the most telling thing that I have ever heard from one of these videos. Because they don't want The Last Jedi to be considered terrible. So if there's no such thing as a way to definitively determine if a movie is bad, then they can save all the movies that they emotionally are attached to.
But it's so I'm just
exactly.
What the fuck is this person? Taxxon. Taxxon. You think criticism going away is a bad thing? What, you on the fucking moon?
What a telling thing to say.
What?
Hey, if criticism would go away, if people could just stop critiquing things altogether and saying things are definitively bad or good, this will be a better place, apparently.
I remember a really bad episode of Red Dwarf made social commentary on like what the world would be like if like we threw out any kind of criticism or anything like that, and it was a spaceship where. So they come across this spaceship, and it's going to fly into some kind of sun, and if it does, it's going to destroy this planet and the people and the Red Dwarf crew. So they go onto the ship, and they find out that any kind of criticism has been outlawed. So all the art on the walls is really childish and stupid, even though it's been made by like 35-year-olds and 40-year-olds. And then like all the walls are like pink, and the police uniforms are like pink and all colorful, and like the engineers aren't doing their jobs because they haven't been critiqued about how they should be doing their jobs. Like they have other people just doing random things, and it's all a mess. It's like that is what the world would come to if there was no criticism in the world. And it's a good thing there's criticism in the world. It's a great thing because, you know, again, you can improve your work. And I love criticism. I love being told, you know, how I can improve my work. And it's very important to do it in the industry that I want to go into. And I want my quality
critical to my
work to be
skills.
quality.
Criticism is absolutely critical to every artist I know. They start off raw, and then they get polished over time through criticism and practice.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's specifically talking about criticism of, you know, people who don't like Star Wars. Like maybe he wants them to just, you know, shut up about how they don't like. Even then, it still doesn't work.
I really like Lee Child. Lee Child is one of my favorite writers because I really like. Well, I mean, he's very entertaining. I really like reading his stuff. I learned a lot from his skills and everything. I mean, he has a lot. He's very knowledgeable, but he's the one who invented Jack Reacher, and I read his first book, The Killing Floor. And if you read that first book, it's entertaining, it's passable, it's a good read, but it's not as good, it's not as sharp, and it's not as well scripted as his latter books. It kind of sags in the middle. There are parts where it gets kind of boring. It's clearly not as polished as his later works, but it's still good. The thing is, he got better. He went from television to writing novels. And I think The Killing Floor was his first novel, and he's one of those writers who says, you know, just don't do a second draft, just do it, kind of the pulp way. So that was his philosophy, and it clearly shows. But he got better over time. If you read The Killing Floor and maybe one of his more recent books, his more recent books are on the money. They're sharp. They flow way better. They're more interesting and in concept. And the characters are consistent. It's just overall better in every facet possible compared to his very first book. And according to this, if there's no objective criticism, then The Killing Floor would be just as good as his latest work. And The Room, The Godfather, Citizen Kane, all the same, apparently.
So, just asking a question: are we really going to be stopping here?
Yes.
So we got through 5 minutes.
Mojave said that it gets worse from here. I'm kind of curious.
It gets worse from here.
How could it get?
I thought we've already established that time is
That's the thing.
subjective.
I'm kind of curious.
Words are
We
subjective.
established that criticism
get
is not a good thing. If
Do we wanna,
criticism went away, it would be great.
Do we want to just simply power through this, barely even pause, just simply
Just see
watch?
if we can get through without pausing once. Just listen to
That
everything.
might not be a good idea because then you could file a claim and take it down the stream. The defense of fair use, because then you're just playing the video without critique.
Sure.
No, this is not worth anyone's time. I mean, if anyone wants to go to 25 minutes and watch the rest of the video, you're more than happy to. But I don't think this is worth. I mean, the first 10 minutes were bad enough, but the last 20...
There's a clip. There's a clip.
Skip to 3204.
Why?
It gets better.
3204.
Andrew Clark.
No.
All right.
No.
All right, let's do it. Hey, listen, a guy paid for it with a super chat. We're gonna do it. Okay?
I was about to say he spent money on this.
He spent money on this.
$2.
Okay.
You know, I'll give him the $2
money.
back out of my own pocket.
That's $2 though.
You're gonna top him with
afford to
$3?
just spend frivolously during this time. There's a fucking pandemic. You gotta save your money for toilet paper so you can eat it.
Toilet paper is a cure for all things. That's why everyone's hoarding it, because it's a cure for all things.
Who wants to do the honors? Go to 3204. Go ahead.
3204. Let's do it. Okay, I'm doing it. All right. 30.
I hate you, Southpaw. I fucking hate you.
3152. All right, 3201. Okay. All right. Let's do this. You ready? We all ready?
Oh my
We're
god.
ready.
Where's the gun? I have a sudden need to shoot myself.
Part 5. Newton's third law of motion.
Yeah.
To close this video out,
Okay.
I'd like to
Physics.
propose something. A fundamental law of art that I believe is the binding force of human artistic expression. It is
Okay.
as follows. The act of establishing a rule or convention in regards to art.
All right.
And then silence.
I don't know what to. I don't know how to
Or
respond.
artistic practice will necessarily result in the implicit formulation of an equal and opposite anti-convention. What do I mean by this? Well, in art, a rule is really just a commonly enough understood aesthetic result of a certain artistic action. For example, matching elements on screen between the cut when editing a film eases the audience's ability to keep track of the events. This is just something we've been able to learn by experimenting a lot. But the catch is that when we learn a rule in art, we must also implicitly
Wait, so hold on. Let's let her finish.
learn what happens when you break that rule. Like, it's just implied. If match cuts help cohesion, foregoing match cuts will lead to disorientation and fatigue. That's just logic. But here's the really sticky part. There is no objective standard that can tell us which road to take. Cohesion or disorientation. Instead of a new rule to live by, we've...
What? Wait, what?
I don't know what they're talking about. I couldn't follow that.
Cohesion, or
Okay, so saying something about, like, as far
Whatever
as
you're
I
about to
understand,
say, Shiny, the answer is yes. You're about to lay out like it could be this, it could and it could be this
Okay.
nonsense one. The answer is yes. It can
I'm
be the
trying to put it
nonsense.
together. Okay,
As
so
long as our
there is no
opinion
such.
is
So
yes.
what he's trying to say, she is trying to say, is that there's no such thing as rules in art, and that it's just kind of more commonly understood, and for every convention there's an anti-convention. I don't understand.
well, hold on. I guess we'll let her continue then.
been given a crossroads. You might think, surely disorienting your audience is a bad idea, but how can you know for certain? After all, we've just...
Because if an audience doesn't know what the hell is going on, then how the fuck are they supposed to enjoy what the fuck is going on?
Don't
when
you
you watch a
want
movie
your
and have
audience
no
to
idea
be
what's going on,
engaged with
this
your
is good.
movie?
You'd reference
Don't
Under
you-
the Skin or some weird movie that's bizarre.
A movie that's literally just a static screen with white fuzz all over it is just as good as The Godfather. Apparently, it could be.
Well, yeah,
quite good.
it's art.
It's art. There's no objective standard. So
Film with really smudgy lens.
it's just it's superior. It can be superior to The Godfather. Just some fuzzy screens.
Ugh.
Why even try then?
doing so. Who's to say it can't be used to effect? Let's find out. Do I stay in key, or do I modulate? Do I paint the subject accurately, or do I embellish? Do I give the audience what they expect, or not? Well, flip a coin.
So,
Did you just say flip a coin?
Flip a coin.
Did you seriously
okay,
just
so what you're usually referring to are
Ryan Johnson probably did that.
more
But
conventions than rules. So when it comes to conventions, they're just things which are commonly seen. You can definitely flip it around. Like, for example, in a lot of movies, humans are seen as, you know, the good guys, but then in Avatar they switch it around. That's not a rule, it's a convention. They swip around the convention of human being the good guys to the humans being the bad guys. And that's not a bad thing. But then again, that is not a rule. You are more talking about conventions, and fuck
it's-
me, this
It's
video.
like a trope. That's what it is. Like, people do tropes in movies all the time.
You don't just like, okay, logic and reason and consistency. Like, if you lose those in your film, you stop having a film. For example, if time stopped existing in your film, then it would just be a huge mess. Like, if
Hey.
nothing happened in like coherent times. Like, if you started off at the beginning, then you jumped to the end in the middle, and then the middle was in the end.
By the way, Mojave in the chat is saying that there's a bit in this video where Taxxon said that apparently artists never have intent when they're making their art.
what?
What?
How do you get the
Yeah.
director's intent?
Hang on.
How can you?
I would say the
possibly
artist's
Mojave.
intent
have
doesn't.
intent to make
I would say the artist intent doesn't really matter. It matters more about the end product, because it doesn't matter what they intended to do. It matters what they actually ended up doing.
Mojave, what's the timestamp for that? Can you give us the timestamp? If you can give us the
No,
timestamp,
no,
yes,
no,
yes,
no,
yes,
no.
yes.
There is if you can take the example of the hero's journey, and that you can follow the entire hero's journey, get the beginning, middle, and end, or you can not use it all. You can just take snippets. You can use maybe only part of the hero's journey for your entire book. That's perfectly acceptable. That's what you're talking about when you're taking on things like should I embellish? Should I change something up? You're still following the same formula. You're still adhering to the same standard. You're just applying a little flourish to it, your own personal little touches.
I have a question, by the way. So apparently, on screen, the word Spartacus came up, but instead of Spartacus, which is how it's supposed to be spelt, she spelled it Sparticus. So would
What's
that
your
be
opinion?
effectively bad spelling?
It's only your opinion. Just because it's spelt bad doesn't mean it's wrong.
Well,
I talked about this with John, man. Like, even a spelling error is a simple criticism that you can use to improve your work in the future.
I
made a
misspell things
spelling
all the
mistake.
time. I misspell things all the time.
I did. I told John I did that in one of my previous videos, and I try to make sure that I spell check everything.
Well,
it's how you can improve your work in the future.
The statement that Patricia was making was that because there's a quality you could have the opposite quality. It's like, well, yes, we have standards or rules, and you understand why those rules are in place. You can then break those rules. You can do something totally different, or you could adhere to what the rule does and use elements of that in a broken apart manner, mix them up, and still apply them. Very similar to the hero's journey. You could put this part at the beginning or the end, etc., etc. But you have to know how and why they work so you can then use it properly in a broken form, whether that rule is followed. Yeah.
There's a normal formula of Star Trek Next Generation where, your typical formula is you start off on a ship, they encounter some strange entity or have some sort of intrigue going on, and then you move out about your day. But in Star Trek Next Generation, there's an episode right after Picard is saved from the Borg where he goes and visits his brother on this nice vineyard. Now that's a break from the norm. That is different
That's more
than what you're
of
expecting.
a convention which is being set by
Yes.
Star Trek and
Like
not
I
a
said,
rule.
It's
Yeah,
an
you can
out of the
break
box episode, which you can do with perhaps maybe you're doing a subversion of some sort of thrillers. Maybe, we've seen some versions in recent years that are pretty good, but it's out of the box for a reason. We recognize it as being different for that reason. We appreciate it because it's trying to be different, and it's doing a good job playing around with the tropes, but it still has those tropes inside of it. Still is being held to the same standard. Good narrative, good characters.
We have to welcome Glib to the chat. We're almost done here, buddy. I'm sorry you popped in so late, but
it's okay. I didn't know what time you guys were going.
Okay.
I was on my own stream. It's my bad.
I don't know what's next up. I have to read a super chat as well from Random Thoughts. Thank you, sir.
The time's in the pinned comments.
Just joined. Hope you
pinned
guys
messages.
will be going for a while. Did I miss any Galaxy Brain arguments? Also, Evan,
you
love
missed
your
a
latest
few.
video. Keep up the great work, sir.
We're not going over any of these arguments again, please. No.
No, there's more like a lack of reason to formulate an argument. It's I don't understand it, therefore it doesn't exist. That's pretty much every point they've made. I can change my perspective, therefore it doesn't exist. Therefore subjectivity is king. That's pretty much it. So, if I could summarize, everything else was just some weird gobbledygook that, with no reference.
Can I just put on a scene from Red Dwarf where it's about the criticism police?
No, I think we're done. I think is
No,
there
no,
anything
no.
else? I think that's it. I don't think
We're
there's.
tapping out, okay?
It was that timestamp that was in the chat by Mojave, I think, or something like that. At 16. I thought we already passed.
We don't
that,
even
though.
have to stream
Yeah,
it.
we did
Yeah, we
pass
were
it.
already past that because we started at we left it at 20 in
Yeah.
part 1.
Yeah.
That was in the first video, yeah.
So, yeah.
You guys sound like you're having a grand old time with this.
We're not having a grand
Exhausting,
time.
man.
It's
This is
like-
like
Did you
a black
know
hole
that
for the
money,
US.
time, and height and length and any kind of measurement is subjective?
He's not making that up. He literally said time is subjective.
I
that's
can kind of see
arbitrary.
how even an alliance between Taxxon and Jack Saint, even that couldn't hold up to Mauler. I can see that. I can see how Mauler destroyed these people.
I really want to play this criticism police scene. I really want to. because it's so relevant. Because it part of the video said that not having criticism would be a good thing, and I want to show kind of like
That'd be a good idea, but right now the bots are hungry on YouTube. They took down my morning stream.
Well, we
played
could
1
watch
minute of
it.
Stanley talking this morning, and they took down my entire stream. So
The
bots
what
are
we
hungry.
could do, we could just watch it off stream. How about that?
I think that's fine. Yep,
That'd be
guys.
safer
Thanks
for
for
Smudboy
joining in. We do appreciate all your time and effort, and we're sorry we had a really bad experience trying to make sense of this gobbledygook. But we tried. We broke it into 2 parts. I don't know what else I could say because it's all horrible, and I don't want to say anything about it. So, thanks for all the super chats. Thanks for your time, Glib. Hi, man. How's it going?
This was entertaining. I'm glad I could come in right at the end just to conclude and freshly come in and see how defeated all you guys are with this illogical nonsense.
It was a ride.
Absolute
But,
dumpster fire.
thank you to Patricia for making your interesting video. We appreciate it. And have yourself a great evening, good folks. Talk to you soon.
Unfortunately, this is the only clip I can find of it.
Oh my.
I was about to say it's blocked. I don't know if that's